Hey, strangers. Welcome to another episode of the Strange Sessions. As always, I am Kurt, and I am joined by my lovely co-host, Krista. Hi, Krista.
Hi, Kurt.
I had nothing weighty today because my
We're
gas
too cold.
tank is we're too cold, and my gas tank is on empty for the season. This
Yeah.
is our second last episode of the season. Corey will be joining us next time, provided it doesn't snow.
Yeah.
I was half worried I wasn't going to get down
Well,
here
will
today.
Corey drive, though?
Yeah, that doesn't scare him like it scares
Yeah.
me.
I did see possible snow today, and I worried about it.
I did too, but because after this, I have to drive down.
I don't see it now.
I drive down to Aaron's house, and that's south of here, and they said a lot of the snow was going to be north.
Oh.
So I'm going to, because I'm not going to have time to edit this episode, really, because I'm going to Aaron's after this for his son's birthday parties. We're going to try to do this as well as we can without having to edit it. And I have my little clock.
Interesting.
I have my little clock here going so that I can mark when I do have to go in and edit something. So it should be a lot easier.
But you know what? As soon as you edit something out, the time changes.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Good point.
I remember when we started the podcast when I started with Jeff and Joe, I was like, oh, I'll just take timestamp notes. The second you edit something out, those timestamps
unless I go in and
change.
edit it out from the last one.
Yeah, you could start at the end and work your way forward. That's what I would say.
But we just have to really try to not make anything.
We can do this.
Yeah.
Our side sessions are largely unedited.
True, but we'll see.
We got this. We've been doing this for 6 seasons.
Yeah, we still don't know what we're doing.
Yeah,
either.
speaking of not knowing what we're doing, if you don't want to listen to us bumbling around in the beginning, check the show.
Bumbling is an
That's a
accurate
good
word for what we do.
Check the show notes. Kurt will have posted the timestamp of the actual topic start. We will not be offended if you skip ahead.
Do we know that this is recording because you updated Audacity?
Yes, it's recording, and I even tested the audio.
Are we sure? Okay.
Yep, I'm sure. And your microphone is on.
It is on. But at least now I'm not going to have to edit out me constantly asking you, what's the time? How long we are into the episode, because I have my little clock counter going. But
Sorry, I had to get Willie. I forgot to put him on my microphone.
I want to give shout outs to our newest strangers, and those are Tabitha Walker, Joshua Masson, Massen. We should read Seth's. Maybe we'll do that next time. Remember Seth sent us the one that you had a screenshot 3 times and sent to me?
Oh, yeah,
because
that was a good one.
He's been here like 2 other times.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe I'm gonna put that in our
Okay.
next one, because I really liked his application to get into the group.
Mm-hmm.
And as always, I got to give shout outs to my students, Nora and Paige, because they always tell me they're going to be mad at me if I don't. So Nora and Paige, love you guys. And I want to give shout outs to 2 of my very best friends, and those are Aaron Pleasance.
That's who you're going to spend time with today?
Yeah, my geocaching life partner. He listened a little bit on and off over the last couple of years, but lately he was getting tired of listening to music, so he started listening to the podcast, like driving to work, back and forth from work every day, because he's got a bit of a drive, and now he's just like obsessed with it, and he loves listening.
It.
So he wants to
and
come on.
I actually went geocaching with you and Aaron.
Yes, you did. So he wants to come on.
I was
next.
the third wheel.
You were the third wheel. Remember the one in the church, by the church? It was like that 5-part one.
It was really hard to figure out.
But he wants to come on next season, and he knows a lot about this stuff. So I think we're going to have him as a guest co-host next season. So Aaron, love you. Thank you so much for listening. I'll be seeing you in a couple hours. And another one of my very best friends, Tom Bialik. He lives in Arizona. He listens to the, he randomly messaged me the other day. Said, hey, listen to their podcast today. So Tom, I've been friends with him forever. His parents both just passed away.
Oh, no.
And, yeah,
both of them?
Yeah. Well, within a span of months.
That's hard.
And their house went on the market November 4th. And that's the house that I've talked about in a previous episode that we said we need to investigate, because you cannot go there and leave sober. You just can't go there and leave sober, because they'd hand you a beer as soon as you walked into the house. And, oh my God, some of the best times of my life were those days when I used to go over there. We'd drink, we'd play Nintendo, bases loaded. We'd sit there and drink all the time. And when I went to see him when he was home a couple of weeks ago to get stuff done at the house finalized, I left the house tipsy, which is the best way to leave that house for the last time. And their basement has seen more parties since the 70s.
Really?
And it was a red shag carpet.
Oh, yeah.
So he cut out a big square of it and gave it to me, because that's like,
that's so fun.
If there's like, if you lived in Manitowoc and ever went to somebody's party at their house, you were at the Bialik house. Like,
funny.
Just like an amazingly sweet, awesome, friendly, good family. So sucks that the house is gone, but I had a lot of good times there. So Tom, love you. Thank you for listening. Those are our shout outs.
We got some nice emails too. So is it Lucha?
Yeah.
Lucha?
Yes, I'm going to do that in the next episode.
Okay.
Yep, because I emailed him and asked if it was okay if we
Oh,
read
you're going
his...
to read them. Okay.
Yeah, if we
nice.
read his story. And he said, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
So I'm going to read that in the next episode.
Sweet.
But yeah, we've gotten a couple nice emails and,
yeah.
I'm super bad with getting back to people.
You're way better than I. I
but
assume
once-
you're going to respond, so I
I
don't.
usually do, but once school's in session, I forget because it's a constant. I'm there all day, and by the time I get home, I'm drained and I'm in bed. So I'm sorry if I don't get back to you right away. I try to.
People are probably shocked that we respond at all.
Oh, I know. There are people that are like, I can't believe you actually wrote back to me. So it's just. We are just two schlubs doing this podcast.
Yeah,
that we didn't
speaking
think.
of schlubs, this is how much of a schlub I am. So, one of our listeners, JMart922, I don't know what his actual name is. Yeah, he that's what he has listed. He's messaged us on Instagram, and he was like, "Hey, have you guys watched the latest season of Unsolved Mysteries on Netflix? Because I swear you guys did a episode on this Josh or whatever. This I'm paraphrasing, and I'm like, oh, did we? I had just watched the episode, and I'm like, it didn't ring a bell.
Yeah, but I believe that was in one of the smiley
had to have
face,
been the smiley
and that's
face.
hard because there's a lot of names that get
Right.
mentioned in the smiley face killers episode.
And-
So it's totally understandable if you missed that.
Yes, and the circumstances of that case totally make sense with smiley face killers because it was a college age guy who leaves a party.
Yeah.
He's drunk probably.
Yeah.
Nobody sees him again. There's like a body of water involved, so there was no smiley face caught or found
No,
near
but
the
it was
body.
just like a death near water.
Right, on a college campus or near
Yep.
a college campus. So I was like, yeah. I told him if I didn't do the research on it, I'm probably not going to remember
Well, because
it.
I'm the one that kind of comes up with what we're going to be talking about and do the research, I feel like I have a
Yes.
I have a better grasp on
Well, if
on
you're
what we did.
researching something, you're going to remember
But
the
the
topic.
thing is, like, even with like the missing 411 episodes, like I forget some of the people we mentioned because there's a lot of
totally.
names that pop up in
Yes.
those episodes.
That is true. But when I do a mini mystery, I tend to remember that I've done it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of like typical me.
Even
Oh, we
'cause
did that topic?
Even Aaron,
Okay.
Aaron wants to come on next season, and I told him, what do you want to talk about? And he went, because he's only he just started the second season, so
Oh.
he's back.
And there's probably a lot of topics
But
he's
he
going to say.
looked through all the topics, and he's like, holy crap, you guys did
Yeah, we
everything.
covered a lot.
Yeah. I said, did you get to Captain Coochie's key lime pie yet? And he said, no, I didn't get to that one yet. But I sent him the Strange Sessions bingo cards.
Oh,
the drinking
nice.
game.
Oh, those
And
are
he
fun.
thought
I
those
forgot
were
about
hilarious.
those.
He's like, I don't even know what half this stuff means. It's in here. And I'm like, you'll get to
You
that
will.
later episodes.
Yeah, you'll get
Do we have
to
any
that.
other housekeeping?
Yeah, it was not housekeeping, but yes. Number one, I wanted to mention that we pushed. So we're recording the next book club episode next week, Wednesday. We had picked Thursday, and then Kurt reminded me that there's like a holiday
going on
happening or
Thursday.
something. So we're recording on Wednesday. So you have until Tuesday. So you're gonna be listening to this on Sunday.
Wow.
Oh my God, this is complicated.
Get your flow charts out for this.
You have like 2 days to give us feedback. We have like 2 or 3 emails, so it'd be nice to get a little more feedback. But
Yeah. I love this book.
yeah, it's a good book.
We'll
I'm
get-
still reading it, so I
Yeah.
can't even read the emails because I'm going to get spoiler alerts from our listeners. So
I know. That's one thing that's hard.
I'm trying not to read the emails.
Did you pick the next couple books?
So I haven't picked the next book, but I do know what the book after that is going to be. So I'll pick the next book, and then
Okay.
I'll announce the next 2 books on the next book club
Okay.
episode. So
Okay.
again,
The housekeeping I have
complicated.
is that we have 2 listener stories. I believe Emily's and Jason's we're going to put it at the end of the episode after the main story.
Should I save my weird stuff that happened this morning for that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because Krista had weird
I have
stuff.
a host story.
Krista had weird stuff happen, apparently. So save that for the end, too.
Okay.
Do we have any other housekeeping? It's just, this is our second last episode. Corey will be
it's
on
crazy.
next time, and I think we're just going to it's going to be a real chill episode. It's just going to be looking back at all of our previous topics, and
Like
we might try to do a couple
Today
updates.
you're talking about?
No.
Or Corey's
When
well,
Corey's
we're
on.
kind of doing that today, though, too, right? We're sort of...
Well, today's
all housekeeping.
today's not housekeeping. It's just stuff that I started this.
Oh, never
there's
got around to
there's
finishing.
basically 2 different chunks.
Okay.
There's the Wisconsin chunk,
Oh.
and then there's the
Gotcha.
the wheel chunk. And the Wisconsin chunk is like just a couple stories of people that went missing or true crime.
Oh, nice.
Because I was going to do an episode on Wisconsin missing 411 cases, but there's just not a lot to carry an entire episode. So I just was researching missing people, and I just found a couple like interesting. There's one that's kind of missing 411-ish, and there's one that's just a true crime one that I just want to get out there, just read, just because I'm interested in that, fascinated with that case. So today is just like I said, it's the end of I was going to call it the Thanksgiving leftovers episode, but I think I'm just going to call it end of season leftovers because it is. It's stuff that I've had.
I like
if
the
you would
spin,
see,
though.
if you guys would see what my computer desktop looks like, it's all, and who was it? Somebody saw me doing one, and they're like, "Why are you using like the old 1996 Microsoft Notepad?" Because it's just all Notepad files, because it's all stuff I start or stuff I want to start. So there's just tons of Notepad files for the episodes.
That's funny.
But I tried using other note-taking apps. But if I copy it off the internet, paste it, it keeps it in the same format.
That's so annoying.
And I cannot stand it. And because it's bare bones, so basic, the old Microsoft Notepad doesn't. It just puts it in as text, and that's what I want. So that's why I use the old circa Windows 95.
I think if you have Microsoft Word, there is a select all, and it's like wipe format. It'll remove all that formatting, but I don't have any of the Microsoft Word stuff licensed on this new laptop. I never did that, and I should have.
Plus,
so
I ain't got time for that.
No kidding. So I use Google Docs. That seems to work pretty good for me.
I use the old school Windows Notepad that looks like it's from way back in the day.
Funny. I can't think of anything else, housekeeping wise.
Oh, I'll think of like 3 or 4 things when I'm driving down to Aaron's today. I don't want to talk about that. I totally forgot, but Corey should be here in the next episode, and we're just going to go over previous episodes from the show, maybe do a couple updates, because you just said you saw something about blue whale.
Yes.
Which just
there
surprises me.
was an article about blue whale,
That's back at episode 1.
The original episode.
I can't go back and listen to that, because it's going to be so awkward.
It's not bad.
Because we jump right in. There's no banter.
Bad.
There's just you and I.
There's no taste test.
No. And I remember people were like, wow, Kurt does really good research. And I think that was the one episode where I did really good research. And I think since then it's been downhill.
Oh, God, no. You
but
do
we're
really
gonna
good research.
We have our last, there's actually a note from him too, which I didn't know until now. Coleman had a note in there.
We're so terrible
We're
at
really
this.
bad at this stuff. So
I always miss notes.
we're going to do our gifts first, and then we'll open that one.
The problem is when people send something from Amazon and they can include a note from Amazon, it just looks like a receipt.
Yes.
I don't realize there's a note printed on it. Okay, we're doing a taste
No,
test
right now
now
we're doing these 3 last gifts from Stephanie.
Oh, okay.
Stephanie in Arizona.
We also have this whole bag from Stephanie that's full of taste test stuff.
Yes. Stephanie,
Okay.
you're awesome. Thank you so much.
Were we going to finish this when Corey is here?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's like she carried us through so many episodes
I
because
know,
she sent us so
totally.
much stuff. So Stephanie, we love you.
Very
Thank you.
generous.
Here is the first one. I don't want to throw it. Come and get it.
Okay.
Because I don't want to break it. It's perfect for our hutch.
Oh, that is so cute. It is a
little Bigfoot.
It's a Buddha Bigfoot.
It is a Buddha Bigfoot. It is a Buddha Bigfoot.
He's sitting
it's
in
a Bigfoot
lotus
in a Buddha
position.
position.
This is lotus position, I believe. I'm going to take a picture. He's super cute. I'm glad you didn't throw it. That would have been bad.
Yes. Although you've been good with catching stuff.
Let's not test our luck here. Oh, he's adorbs.
Totes adorbs. This is probably stuff I usually edit out.
Super
but we're
cute.
not editing
He's
it
going
out.
in. Oh, yeah. Gotta be really intentional about, this in-between stuff. Okay. Boom. I'm back.
This
I'm going to get my steps in.
I really like. I really like this, and if you don't want this, I will take it.
Do I
Ready?
have to get up again?
Nope.
Oh.
It's
so
it's not
scary.
fragile.
Okay. It's not fragile. Oh, cute. Are they little chili peppers?
Yes.
Oh, my God.
If you don't want that,
That's
I will
adorable.
take that.
Yeah, you can. I don't wear bracelets.
I like wearing them at work, actually.
Okay, ready?
Yep.
That's adorable. They're teeny tiny chili. Oh, let me take a picture. Sorry. Jeez. Ooh.
It's just tossed.
Wow, we've actually managed to catch it every
Yeah,
time.
this is a podcast where you listen to Krista and I play catch.
Oh my God. Okay. Okay. Picture is taken. Here you go. Oh, damn.
Ruined
So
our
close.
streak.
Okay.
And this is the last thing from her. I'm not exactly sure what this is. I think there's a note in it. Catch.
Okay. Woo. We are like.
I know what it looks like.
Do you? Because is it sage?
It might be sage. I thought it was a dream catcher. It almost looks like a dream catcher.
Oh, it looks like sage to me, like to sage your house. Huh. That's funny.
Why, you need sage?
Well, stuff I talk about later, I'll tell you. No, I don't think so. Just some weird stuff happened this morning.
That's because when you go up to the bathroom between episodes, I bring a Ouija board and I try to get stuff amped up here.
Great.
Krista's getting the dagger.
Kurt's desperate for an investigation, so he's trying to conjure stuff at my house.
Yeah, because this is the only place I'm going to go,
And
realistically.
we can investigate at 6 o'clock in the morning. I won't mind. Oh, funny. Yeah, it's like a little saging kit.
That's cool.
Smudging trio.
That's
Full
cool
Moon
because we don't
Farms.
have that.
No, we don't.
And we can save that for if we go to some place
we
that
actually
really,
go
really
somewhere.
needs it.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to take a picture. This is
Okay.
really cool. That's fun.
Should we open that other bag?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
People laugh at the way we say bag.
Bag.
No, we say
Bag.
it BAYYYYYG.
What's in
Bag.
here?
Oh, what is that?
We have another unopened.
Okay, should we say? Let's save that for when Corey's here.
Do we know? It feels like a taste test.
We'll save that for when
can
Corey's
tell
here.
there's
'Cause
like
we
a
already
bag
got.
in there.
We already have a taste
Oh my
test.
goodness.
Oh no, that's for if there would be a Christmas
Should I put
episode.
this in the hutch too?
Yeah.
Okay.
If there would be a Christmas episode, we have a really intriguing snack for a Christmas episode. So the one from Anne.
Okay. Okay. So this we're opening from. Oh, it doesn't say.
So the one from Anne we're gonna save.
Okay. So this is the one you brought today.
Yes.
I'm opening this now.
Yes.
We have so many things. Okay. I'm just thinking of like all that stuff over there still. Okay, yes, this is the tea that we were emailed about. Oh shoot, was I gonna read that email? Oh, it smells good. Have you had
I've never
Sleepy
had
Time?
that. I've never
So
had that.
I've had Sleepy Time. I've never had the Sleepy Time Echinacea Immune Boost.
No,
though.
I it's weird that she sent that because I was looking at teas because I'm trying to get away from drinking soda at work during the day.
Oh yeah.
And I was looking at teas and I was looking at Sleepy Time teas, but I did not get one.
You can actually smell it. It smells like Sleepy Time. I've had a lot of Sleepy Time tea.
Yeah, I'm excited
It
to try
smells
it.
like
I'm
it.
excited to try that one because I'm
Yes.
getting sick all the time.
I know. Well, you basically work in a petri dish. So
Yeah.
we're gonna save this for the book club episode, right?
Yep.
So I'm gonna send half of these home with you. You can actually take this whole thing.
Are you sure?
I'll keep one bag.
Yes.
For myself.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm excited for that.
Okay. Is there a note? I don't want to miss a note. I do not have my glasses on. If there's a note in here, I apologize that I may or may not see it. Here we go. Kurt and Krista, this is the tea I drink all winter. It tastes, quote, different, but has echinacea and zinc and is good for your immune system. I recommend 1 packet Splenda sugar per tea bag. Stay strange, healthy from Jana. I drink it without sweetener, but I'm weird like that. So cool. I'm excited.
I don't think I've ever put sweetener
I guess
in
I won't
tea.
read her email then because she kind of gave us a note here.
Okay. I don't think I've ever put sweetener in tea.
I put creamer in tea a lot.
Seriously?
It's the British in me.
I guess so.
I am part British, apparently.
And that's what we got. And this
think
is
so.
one of our taste tests. I will read. This is from Coleman.
Okay.
We've had the other one. I've never had this, but I love these. It is Pocky. We've had other Pockies. This one is
yeah.
Almond Crush.
Yum.
Chocolate and almond.
Do you want to open it?
Nope, you can open it, right?
Okay.
I'll read his note that he sent
okay,
with
gotcha.
his stuff. So this is from Coleman. Happy birthday yesterday,
Happy
Coleman,
birthday,
by the way.
Coleman.
Coleman writes, Kurt and Krista, this is your fellow Scotty and longtime stranger Coleman. Just wanted to say keep up the great work and that your podcast is my absolute favorite. You two do such a great job and have such a good rapport with each other. It's great. And also, I hope you both realize how you truly help people, including myself, when times are tough and I'm down or depressed. So a giant thank you to both. Enclosed are some items for the taste test. There are some Mexican/Asian snack foods, but don't worry, they should be pretty tasty. Definitely no dunder salt. LOL.
thank God.
Enjoy and stay strange. Coleman. Thank you so much, Coleman. We
And
love
how-
you, and we want to
yes.
get Coleman on here. Next season would be awesome to get Coleman on here.
And how convenient the package comes with
Yes.
2 individually wrapped.
I love Pockies.
Things. I know.
The students have Pockies a lot at school, and they always give me one, but I've never had the Almond Crunch.
I'm excited. Okay, I gotta take a picture. It reminds me of like that rock candy that comes
Yes.
on. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Okay. You probably edit out all this silence, but
I do
just
usually,
gonna
so I'm
deal
just
with it.
trying. I'm trying to keep
Ooh, it
talking.
smells good. Okay. Mm-hmm. It's not overly sweet. That's what I
No.
like about these. Didn't we have like a strawberry one or something?
Yes, I expected
I
the
thought
nuts
so.
to be harder.
It's delicious though.
I love Pockies.
I love the little cracker part.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a little shortbread.
I need to buy Pockies more often. I see them at Meijer when I shop at Meijer all the
really?
time. Yeah,
Okay.
so good.
Yeah. I could eat that whole thing right now. Yum, yum.
Are we ready to jump into the topic?
Uh-huh. Thank you, Coleman.
Thank you, Stephanie Coleman. Thank you, everybody who has sent us stuff. Anne's package we're going to open next time.
Were there postcards that you ran across that you forgot to
yeah,
bring?
there's some at home.
We probably have gifts sitting around taste tests that we're not aware of. Like, this is just how we roll, people.
Somebody probably sent us $1 million that's just sitting somewhere in an
man.
envelope.
Those letters from that guy are probably a map to some kind of treasure that we have in our fingertips.
That'd be awesome. I'd love to go on a treasure hunt, real life treasure hunt. Okay. So today's topic, it is the end of season leftovers. This is stuff that, I don't remember if I talked about it on here or was that us babbling before we were doing our
No, I think you were talking about it on
Yeah.
here.
This is stuff that either I didn't get into an episode or our episode was running long, but there's basically two different chunks. There's the Wisconsin chunk and there is the wheel chunk.
Have you talked about the wheel? Do I know what that is?
No.
Okay.
No.
I was like, what is
But
the wheel?
that came up during that actually is kind of pertaining to two episodes we did this season, actually. Two different episodes we did this season, which
Okay.
is interesting. So the first one is Wisconsin stuff because I wanted to start a Wisconsin Missing 411 episode, but there just wasn't enough. But I found a couple interesting cases of missing people. You know, these are ones that aren't really well known.
Okay.
There's only a couple, so I wouldn't get too excited.
I will get as excited as I
Wow.
want.
I'm
You
done
know
with
I
this
like missing
podcast. I'm
persons
done.
cases.
This is our last episode.
This is our second to the last
This is our
episode.
second to the last
I'm
episode.
only showing up one more time.
I am not doing any more after next season
next one.
until next year. So this one is actually kind of a Missing 411 style
Okay.
because I don't know what happened to this dude. So most of this comes from a MichiganLive.com website article from November 4th, 2022 called, quote, Unsolved. Wisconsin college student went missing in the Porcupine Mountains 54 years ago. And from a Michigan DNR article called, quote, Showcasing the DNR, Missing in the Porcupine Mountains. I've never heard of the Porcupine Mountains before.
Is it in Wisconsin?
It's in the UP. It's technically in
Oh.
Michigan.
Okay.
It's technically because but, you know, I feel like Wisconsin considers the UP part of Wisconsin too, even though it's
They're
Michigan.
like extended family.
It's like extended
Our neighbors
family.
are from the UP, so I get it.
So around 10:30 a.m. on April 22nd, 1968, 19-year-old Michael Larson of Madison, Wisconsin told his mother he was going out for a haircut, according to a news feature released this week by the Michigan Department of Natural Resources. No one ever saw him again. Just said, hey, I'm going out for a haircut. And if my voice seems weird,
It's not weird to me.
a week ago from today, I had no voice.
Yeah. You had bronchitis or something?
Yeah, Corey and Aaron both called me on the phone, and they're like, I have never heard you sound like this before. Last Friday, I literally could not talk. My voice just started coming back like 2 days ago, so it might go on and off this episode, so sorry about that.
I'll
But
try to
yeah.
impersonate you if that
Okay. 19-year-old Michael Larson said, hey, I'm going out for a haircut. Never was seen. Larson, a student at the University of Wisconsin, drove away in his green 1962 Volkswagen sedan. He was wearing green trousers and a black sweatshirt. Unbeknownst to anyone at the time, he also took with him a poncho and a map of the Porcupine Mountains Wilderness State Park in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. He withdrew $650 from his savings account.
Okay.
So took $650
For a haircut. Wow.
Took $650 out, took his poncho, took a map of the Porcupine Mountains. And
This is a very suspect haircut he's getting.
yeah. 2 days later, after his abandoned vehicle was discovered 300 miles away by a conservation officer at the Porkies, and at the Porkies is what they call the Porcupine Mountains.
That's cute.
It was parked on the remote roadside at a gravel pit off the south boundary road.
Okay.
The keys were in the ignition and the gas tank was full, which is weird. Police said the license plates from the car were missing and that there were small drops of blood found on the front seat cushions in the car's interior. There were no signs of the driver. The sheriff speculated that whoever took off the license plates from the vehicle might have cut their hand, resulting in the finding of blood. It appeared to him that the car had been abandoned. The owner of the car was traced through oil change stickers, said an article in the Ironwood Daily Globe. So, there's like, we'll get into it. It's just me stammering.
Oh, you
there.
just curded yourself.
But the tank was full.
Yeah,
the
that's
license
odd.
plate was taken off.
I'd like to know if there was a gas station right near the park. Like maybe if you're like me, so when we go up north, I always say, let's get gas on the way so that when we're heading home, we don't have to stop. We can just go home.
Yeah.
So maybe that was
But
his
the question
logic.
is, was this,
Why are the
did he
license
know
plates
this was a
gone?
one-way trip that he was taking?
Why would he fill the tank then?
I don't know. It's just weird. Larson was described as being 6 feet tall, weighing about 170 pounds, with brown hair and blue eyes. He was a good-looking dude. Like in his picture,
Okay.
it'll be in the teaser. He has never been in trouble with the law, his mother told police. He was a top student at the University of Wisconsin and had no known illnesses, no enemies, no family, or no girlfriend problems. She also described him as kind of an introvert. She said, "They say his university grades are excellent. He is not facing military service at this time, and he had no apparent problems that would cause him to leave without telling me." He
Yeah,
wasn't.
you got to think of the time. Like when you say the
Yep,
military
and
service part.
we're gonna get into that.
Okay.
He wasn't an angler or a hunter, but Larson knew how to read maps and how to use a compass. He liked to go on backpacking trips and had done so in the Porcupine Mountains with his brother Tom, who was 18 years old when Larson disappeared. Larson was the eldest of 4 boys: Tom, Glenn, who was 15 at the time of the disappearance, and Dan, 12. By November 1968, nothing had been found to indicate Larson's whereabouts. The Ontonagon County Sheriff asked hunters to be on the lookouts for clues. 2 days into firearm deer season, which is starting today here,
Yes, today.
a hunter found a boot laying in the woods with a human leg bone protruding from it.
Okay.
The leg was attached to a foot still inside the boot. Yikes. The hunter reported his discovery. A search conducted the next day turned up the matching boot about 50 yards away, along with bones that seemed to have been chewed on, and bite marks on the boots appeared to have been caused by a bear.
Sure.
So,
It's the North Woods.
yeah. The University of Michigan Science Department, so did they give it to students to like, here, we found this.
Here's your next
Here's
project.
extra credit. The University of Michigan Science Department determined that the bones belonged to a white male over 17 years old, but no other details could be determined. The
Maybe
answer,
it's like Fredert is a medical college.
Yeah.
You go there for treatment, but
Yeah.
it's also a teaching
but
place.
you know,
Maybe
like,
it's
I
that
can't
sort
imagine
of
going in, putting it on the table. Here you go. Here's today's lesson.
thing. Work this out.
You know, because one of the other reports I read, the guy thought it was a stick, and he's like, "Why is a stick in this boot?" He goes over, and it's a bone, a leg bone, with the foot still in the boot. The answers to what happened to Michael Larson awaits discovery and seems to be lost to time. My brothers think he may have gone up there and committed suicide, Tom Larson told the DNR, but he doesn't believe it. In fall of 1967, Michael had dropped his college classes, but picked them back up again in the spring of 1968, most likely to maintain a college deferment from being drafted into the Vietnam War. Tom said that he and Mike both had low draft numbers, which would have increased their chances of being drafted. He said that if his brother had wanted to avoid the draft, going to the Porcupine Mountains, though, would not be the best plan, and it would not get him to Canada because Lake Superior is there. Like, I looked at it on a map. Like, it's a huge, like, wooded area, but it doesn't border Canada. You have to go across all of Lake Superior.
Which is not a small lake.
No. During
Interesting.
initial interviews after Michael's disappearance, his father told police that he thought his son might have planned a trip somewhere, possibly Canada, and does not think that foul play had occurred. Tom
What
said
about
that,
the blood, though?
huh?
What about the blood in the
They
car,
think that's from
though?
when he took the license plates off that he cut his hand.
Oh, why would he take the license plates off?
I don't
though?
know. Because they
If
did,
you're just going on a trip, you're not taking the license plates
but
off.
it almost sounds like trying to go
Disappear.
trying to maybe to get away from the draft.
Yeah.
Tom said that over the years since his brother's disappearance, when the family phone would ring and then stop, or when someone would answer and the caller would just hang up, his father would suggest that maybe it was Michael trying to call them or wanting to speak with them. Tom says that, quote, "Our dad never gave up believing that Mike was still alive." Glenn Larson died in 1992, 24 years after his eldest son's disappearance. Mary Larson, his mother, suffered a stroke and died in 1978. She had been the last family member to see Michael back in 1968 when he left for the haircut. Tom Larson hopes hunters heading into the woods this firearm deer season will be on the lookout for bones or other artifacts that could be compared with his DNA for a positive match. The bones that were collected in 1968 have long gone missing.
Oh, really?
Yeah. During June, law enforcement officers and dogs searched the area where the car was found. Tom and Dan Larson also visited the state park in June. In August, officers and cadaver dogs searched the area where the bones were discovered, and the efforts came up with nothing. That's what I got. So I don't know. That one is weird because
I just think okay, so right off the bat, this is not just some kind of accident that happened. I mean, I'm not saying foul play was involved, but there was something strange going on here.
the two theories that I have are some kind of mental break.
Could be. Yep.
And a mental break with ending in suicide, or
maybe he was just trying to disappear though, so he wouldn't get drafted.
That's my other guess. Is that he was just trying to dodge the draft.
Yeah, and to assume that he was trying to make his way to Canada doesn't make sense, especially when his mom said he was really good with maps. He would have known that he wasn't going to get to Canada via the route he was taking, right?
Yeah,
maybe he was just looking to camp out in the woods.
Unless he was going to meet a boat there that was going to take him across to Canada.
I think someone would have come forward by now, though.
Not necessarily. If somebody is helping somebody dodge the draft and take him across Lake Superior on a boat. And maybe he didn't show up because maybe a bear did get him and he didn't show up to, I don't know Lake Superior.
I mean, I've seen it. I've been up that far north.
But can you cross it on a motorboat?
I mean, it's no different than Lake Michigan.
Yeah, but
it might be a little
choppy.
Can you
cross Lake Michigan on a motorboat?
I think you probably can. It's just going to be a harrowing ride. The waves get pretty big when you get out into the middle.
And they still don't know whether or not those legs that were...
Are
the
even
boots
his?
that were found were even his.
So they couldn't identify the boots?
No.
Like the mom?
No. They just said that all they know is that it belonged to a male more than 17 years old.
So it couldn't... We don't even know... Well,
we don't even know
was
if it's
it the
him.
type of his car? Are we sure that was his car?
That was his car. Because they traced it through the oil change records.
Okay.
But then it was, him taking the license plates off makes it sound like he wanted to disappear.
Yes, totally.
But then it was
Why
also...
would he fill the tank
I don't
up?
know.
That's so weird.
I don't know.
There's so many strange things about this that...
As Krista would say, that one's a head
it's
scratcher.
a head scratcher, for sure.
Unless...
Nothing completely makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, unless he didn't think he was going to have enough gas to get to the park, so he topped it off. But I don't know.
Yeah, I'd want to know how many gas stations are nearby.
Again, I can't imagine how this is for the family.
No.
Not knowing...
I would rather, this sounds horrible, I would rather know that someone was dead than always wonder and hope.
Yeah.
Somebody else would probably say, I would rather have that hope, but then you would spend the rest of your life waiting and looking and never moving on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I'd need some kind of closure.
Exactly. So, I don't know.
I don't know.
This was a very missing 411 like case, but I didn't find a ton of them like this. But there's some other weird disappearance, or not weird, but there's some other stuff here.
About this case?
No, that's it for this case.
Oh, can I pause really quick to do? Someone left a comment. I just want to read it really quick.
Yep.
So this person, I think, leaves a comment every 2 weeks when we post on recording day.
Is this the person that says promote us on such and such website?
I haven't gotten that yet. I haven't seen that yet. I should knock on wood. It's happening right now, probably. It says, "Hi, Krista. Hey, Kurt. Hope everything is good. If you can say my name on next episode, Roberto from Brazil. May God bless you and your family."
Aww.
And he leaves the sweetest comments every time. So
from where?
He's from Brazil.
Thank you, Roberto from Brazil.
Thank you, Roberto. And here's your shout out. We love you.
Yes. Thank you for listening.
Yes. Okay. Moving on.
Next one. I can feel my voice starting to go.
I know. Should I get you some lemon water? Not that I have lemons.
No.
Okay, good. Thank you for saying
cucumber
no.
water's always
I don't
good.
have cucumbers either. We have to go grocery shopping.
Just throw some stuff from the backyard, from the grass, into a tea.
Some mulch.
On May 3rd, 1935, Mrs. Stanley Wilk of the town of Armenia, Wisconsin, walked a cow to a nearby neighbor.
As you do in Wisconsin.
As you do in Wisconsin.
Let's go for a walk.
That's what it sounds like. That's what it sounds. Yeah, Mrs. Stanley Wilk in the town of Armenia,
You're like
Wisconsin.
rereading it in case you were wrong.
Yeah, I was reading it again. On May 3rd, 1935, Mrs. Stanley Wilk of the town... 1935, that's a ways back. Maybe that's what you did for fun back then. They didn't have Netflix. Right. On May 3rd, 1935, Mrs. Stanley Wilk of the town of Armenia, Wisconsin, walked her cow to a nearby neighbor. Upon returning home, she discovered her 21-month-old daughter, Thelma Ann, missing. Thinking the little girl attempted to follow her, the mother followed the footprints out to the highway for a quarter of a mile. The prints then vanished into the woods. Realizing the perils of the rough country that could potentially kill her child.
Okay, that's not even 2 years old.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
Could a kid that small get that far? I guess who knows
Apparently.
how long she was there and why did she...
Yeah,
Okay,
the
never
prince
mind.
then vanished into the woods. Realizing the perils the rough country held for her child, she rushed back to tell her invalid husband, Stanley, what had happened.
Where is this?
Armenia, Wisconsin?
Do you know where that is,
No
though?
idea.
Okay.
Neighbors were immediately summoned to begin the search, which to them, at first, seemed to only be a matter of minutes before the little tot would be found. As hours passed, though, fears increased, and civilian conservation corps boys, which were like the early version of Boy Scouts, were called in to aid in the search. 3 CCC camps were located within the county, so it seemed only minutes for the searchers to number in the hundreds. So it's nice that everybody came out to immediately, and it's nice that there were, the
such a
civilian
response.
conservation corps boys were like the early Boy
Is it
Scouts.
Armenia? You keep saying Armenia. I think it's Armenia. Like
Maybe it is Armenia.
Armenia. So it's like central. It's like right almost in the middle of the state.
Okay.
I don't know if you can see the red dot.
So yeah, within what seemed like minutes, there were at least 100 people searching.
Yeah, okay.
Searching continued until dark. Fears mounted when thoughts of the recent reports of the amounts of bounties paid in the nearby town for wolves, bobcats, lynx, and wildcats were like rising because there were so many of these critters out there. Sheriff Morgan Ryder, that's like a perfect sheriff name. Sheriff Morgan Ryder and deputies joined the search with a bunch of vigilantes, 600 CCC Boy Scouts, and men from men from Necedah, Wisconsin, Mauston, Wisconsin, New Lisbon, Wisconsin, Camp Douglas, and Hustler.
Oh, sure.
Which I'm not even gonna say it, and other nearby communities. Hopes mounted on May 4th when the tot's cap was located. The cap had been made by her mother from the sleeve of a sweater. Tiny footprints were then found nearby that faded towards the underbrush, and searchers entered the underbrush looking over every inch, found nothing. As darkness set in, the posse decided that they would hold off until the next morning, but they would stay coming until a child was found alive or dead.
So do we know how far this was from the home?
No. Well, I think we might in a second.
Okay.
On the afternoon of May 5th, neighbor Albert McClellan, with a few friends, decided to search a northern route about 3 miles away from the Wilk home. It seemed improbable that a child that age could travel that distance. After walking through very dense underbrush, they came to a clearing. In the distance, they saw something in the grass. They got closer and saw a body lying face down on the grass. Deciding that this had to be her and she was dead, they were afraid to touch her, so instead they called out her name, and after a few seconds, the girl sat up, rubbed her eyes.
What the heck?
Yeah, looked at McClellan and smiled. He then carried her back to the home through the woods, where everybody cheered. Sheriff Ryder bundled her up and put her in his car and then headed to her home, and she was reunited with her family.
How many days later was this?
I don't think it was like 2 days later.
Okay.
Yeah. Sheriff Ryder bundled her up, put her in the car, returned her to her family. She was covered with cuts and scratches and had a temperature of 101 degrees, but other than that, she was happy and fine. 3 days and 2 nights in the woods with temperatures that dipped well below freezing.
3 days, 2 nights.
A reward had been offered to anyone finding the little child, but McClellan refused to accept it. Then he had second thoughts and accepted it and gave it to the mom. He gave it to her.
Oh, that's nice.
And that's that.
Wow, that's a good Samaritan right there.
Yeah. But could you imagine like coming up on a body laying face down on the ground? It looks like the little girl you're looking for.
I would die.
And then she gets up and kind of smiles. But she like 3 miles.
3 miles?
Yeah.
That's a long way to go for a
3
little
days,
whippersnapper.
3 days, 2 nights in the woods.
What time of year was it?
May, so spring. So that's not.
It could actually be pretty
Yeah.
cold,
Yeah.
especially at night.
Yep.
And she's barefoot.
Yeah.
I think that would be crazy to keep spotting little bare footprints and no other footprints around it. Like,
Yeah.
that's so crazy.
But it is amazing that she was found.
Absolutely.
You know.
And in relatively good condition.
Yeah. She had a high fever.
Like,
She had
I
a
wonder
fever.
what was she following something? Like,
And did she just sleep in the woods at night? Like what, you know, I don't know.
wow, 3 miles.
Yep.
That's hard to fathom.
So there you go.
Interesting.
These next, I think 1 or 2 are from a website, the Fantasy World Project blog, in an article called, quote, The Convenient Madman. So this one says, on Thursday, May 1st, 1947, Mrs. Carl Flerke of Jefferson, Wisconsin, picked up her neighbor's 8-year-old daughter, Georgia Weckler, at the youngster's school. From what I read, their school was the only school that had a half day that day. So they got out early, and I think the mom maybe couldn't go get her.
Okay.
So they picked her. So Georgia, the neighbor picked up Georgia at the youngster school. Mrs. Flerke drove the girl down Highway 12 to the Weckler farm entrance and dropped her off. Being a farm acreage, the house proper sat back half a mile from the road, a short distance for an energetic young girl. And I can totally see this in my head, where the house is set back and there's a long driveway that goes back to the house. Georgia grabbed some letters from the mailbox, turned and waved to Miss Flerke, and started down the long drive. The girl did not reach home, however. She was never seen again, despite the hundreds of police officers and volunteers who scoured the area for 10 miles around, and despite a reward of $8,000 offered for any information on her fate.
So she was dropped off at the end of her driveway.
Yep. Hopped, from what it sounded
Was
like,
walking down her driveway.
She skipped. Yep.
And was never seen
So
again.
this is from hauntedrockford.com. By the end of that first full day, most of the men involved in the search knew that this was not a case of a missing child. Later the next day, a truck driver confirmed their worst fears. The driver told the police that he had been driving on Highway 12 around the same time that Georgia had been dropped off. He spotted a dark car pulled off the side of the road not far from the driveway to the Weckler home. Just as the truck driver was about to pass the car, it suddenly pulled out in front of him and turned into the driveway. The driver had to swerve to avoid hitting the car. He turned back to yell out the window and saw a young girl skipping down the road towards the house. It was the last confirmed sighting of Georgia. Yeah. Finally, in December came word that there had been a confession. District Attorney Francis Garrity of Jefferson County told reporters that a Richland Center, Barry used to live there.
Yeah, I was going to say this is near Madison.
Yep. That a Richland Center man had confessed to taking Georgia Jean. Buford Sennett was only 22 in 1947 when the story broke, but by then his name was already well known to authorities. Sennett confessed that he and another man had taken Georgia because they knew her father was well off. The plan was to return the little girl when the ransom was paid. They held the little girl in a woods outside of Richland Center. Sennett testified that he gave the little girl some sleeping pills before he left for town because he had a date that night back in Richland Center. When he returned the next morning, the little girl was dead. It turns out that the accomplice, who was identified, hadn't known, and he had given her a bunch more of the sleeping pills to knock her out. Sennett stated that they weighed Georgia's body down with cinder blocks and tossed her from the Blue River Bridge near where they had left Carlson's body. Oh, that was somebody else that they killed. So that's not good guys. They did kill this Carlson person, but they also said that they killed Georgia.
Wow.
Though many hours were spent searching the area, no body was ever found. Later, Sennett recanted the confession. Some folks believe that Buford took Georgia, and other people think that he didn't, and that they were just taking credit for it. But there has never been
How would you
any.
do that, though?
I don't know, but there's never been any trace found of her.
I guess people do that, though. People
And they
take
said
credit
weighted
for
down with
crimes.
cinder blocks, like they said she was. That there should have been something
Right.
in
They
the
should've-
area where they dropped her.
Yeah, they should have been able to find her then.
But yeah, I mean, that's just frightening to think of a girl like dropping. Could you imagine what it's like for that neighbor to know you dropped the girl off at the end of the driveway? You saw her grab the
Shoulda,
mail,
woulda,
go down the
coulda.
driveway, and then she just never gets to the house.
Right.
So it's obviously a case of somebody grabbing her because
Yeah.
I don't think she would have got
I can't
lost.
think of any other. Yeah.
But yeah, so she has never turned up either.
Yeah, that would be hard to live with.
Yep. In Missing 411 Eastern United States, David Politis tells us Start all over here.
Ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. Every time we do that, I think
know.
of that.
In Missing 411, Eastern United States, David Politis tells us of the Wisconsin disappearance of Judy Rodenkall, a 16-year-old high school student of Auroraville, Wisconsin, 10 miles west of Oshkosh.
I didn't think there was an actual missing 411 case in Wisconsin.
Yeah, there's a couple in his books, but
Okay.
they're not really lengthy enough to write a lot
full
about.
episode, yeah.
Yep. On the morning of October 30th, 1956, Judy left home for the bus stop where a school bus would soon pick her up. She never made it to school. It was not until evening when her boyfriend arrived at the house to take her out on a date that anyone realized something was wrong. Police and search teams didn't even know where to begin looking until Halloween Day dawned. Judy's socks and handkerchief were found in a creek a mile north of her home. Bloodhounds were then brought to the creek, but they could not track her. At around 7:30 p.m. on November 1st, a farmer named Edgar Tim found her barefoot, cold, and suffering from shock, hiding in his shack. She was taken to a hospital and released after about a week. She could never account for her actions over the course of those missing 3 days. Doctors suggested that she had some sort of mental break or a blackout, which is weird that she just went.
Something happened to her and she's blocked it out, kind of
Possibly,
thing? Like someone took her and
Possibly.
has sort of an amnesia.
but she's
As a
going
survival.
She's headed to the bus stop. 16-year-old girl headed to the bus stop, disappears. They find her socks and her handkerchief in the woods, and then this guy finds her in his shack. So
Like, I wonder if something happened to her in that shack.
I don't know. I don't know, but that showed up in one of the Missing 411 books. Another one, on November 1st, 1952, 43-year-old Victor Bunk Travis left his home west of Plainfield, Wisconsin, to go deer hunting with Ray Burgess of Milwaukee. The hunt led them first to Mac's Bar in Plainfield, where they remained, no doubt fortifying themselves for the night's endeavor, until 7 o'clock p.m. They then climbed into Burgess's car and drove off into the woods and into oblivion. Travis and Burgess, along with their vehicle, were never seen again. So that's weird that everything just completely disappeared.
Yeah.
The vehicle, the two
Everything.
men. But Plainfield, Wisconsin, remember that.
Okay.
Because there's a theory that ties in a lot of these last missing ones that is kind of not so, that I don't buy.
Okay.
So this last one is kind of a longer true crime one. But I just thought it was an interesting case. From a March 9th, 2021 article on Stories of the Unsolved called, quote, The Disappearance of Evelyn Hartley. In 1953, 15-year-old Evelyn Hartley was a junior at Central High School in La Crosse, Wisconsin. The evening of October 24th, 1953 was the night of the La Crosse State College homecoming game. And now it's the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse. And I know a lot of my friends ended up going there, actually.
It's a beautiful city.
The majority of the town was expected to attend, including Professor Viggo Rasmussen, his wife, and their eldest daughter. They were planning on leaving their 20-month-old daughter Janice at home with their regular babysitter, but it turns out that the regular babysitter was also attending the game. So they contacted Evelyn, who they knew through her father, who was a biology teacher at the university. While at first she agreed to take the job, she later wanted to cancel it, but her mother refused to let her cancel the babysitting job. And
Okay.
the mother is going to come to regret that very much.
Oh, okay.
At around 6:20 that evening, Vigo picked up Evelyn from her home and brought her to the family's house at the 2400 block of Hoskler Drive. It was a newer neighborhood on the edge of La Crosse with very little external lighting installed along the street. Upon entering the home, Evelyn placed a bouquet of flowers on the kitchen table and set aside a few school books she brought. That sounds like so 50s-ish. You know, set aside a few school books she brought with her as she planned to study after the baby was put to bed. After instructing the teenager of Janice's routine, the Rasmussens left to attend the football game. Before leaving home, Evelyn was instructed by her father to call them around 8:30 to check in. When she didn't call, Richard tried phoning the Rasmussens' home a few times only to receive no answer. Worried, he ended up getting in his car and driving over to the family's house to check that everything was okay. When he arrived at the home, he found the lights and radio were on and that the doors leading into the house were locked. He knocked on both the front doors and the back doors and rang the front doorbell, but Evelyn never answered. As his concern grew, he looked through one of the windows to find his daughter's glasses and one of her shoes lying on the living room floor. After a walk around the home's exterior, he found the only open window entered into the basement towards the back of the house. The screen had been removed and placed against the outside wall, and a small stepladder had been positioned directly below the window inside.
Oh, man.
It would later be learned that the family had been using it while painting the basement. It was through this window that Richard entered the home. Upon entering the home, Richard found Evelyn's other shoe in the basement. As he inspected each room, he found no sign of his daughter, but did notice that Janice was sound asleep in her crib unharmed. A closer examination of the living room found the furniture was in disarray. Evelyn's school books were scattered all over the place, and her glasses had been broken. Richard also noticed blood in the home, which only worked to heighten his concern. A neighbor of the Rasmussens saw Richard walking around the home and came over to see what was going on. Upon the worried father explaining the situation, the neighbors offered to help look for Evelyn before returning home to call the police. Richard explained the situation to the dispatcher, and officers were sent to the location to look into the matter. When the Rasmussens returned home, they found the entire residence surrounded by police cars. Investigators found numerous clues while looking in and around the Rasmussen home. There were pry marks on 3 of the windows, showing that someone had attempted numerous times to break into the home before finally settling on entering through the basement. There were also numerous areas where blood was present, which matched Evelyn's blood type. There were 2 pools of blood in the yard, with one being 18 inches in diameter and more located inside the house near the basement window. A bloody handprint was also located approximately 4 feet from the ground on the wall of the garage, which was 100 feet away from the main house, and additional blood stains were found on the outer wall of a neighbor's house. That's just frightening.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Wow.
Yeah. Given the amount of blood at the scene, it was theorized that Evelyn's abductors had been carrying her through the yard but had to stop and rest her on the ground, which resulted in the pooling blood. Footprints were also located in the basement window box and in the living room, which appeared to have come from a pair of sneakers with a distinct pattern on the sole.
Why did they assume it was 2 people?
Because, I don't know. I think it would just been hard to subdue and remove her through the window. I mean, to get her from the basement window to the backyard. Mm-hmm. According to a book on the case...
So they're certain they put her through the window?
No.
Because you could have just
they're not. I'm
unlocked
going to get
the back
that in a second.
door. Okay.
According to a book on the case, detectives also found clues to suggest Evelyn had been removed from the house via the basement window. A button with red threads had been found attached to the window well, and her father recalled that she'd been wearing red denim pants when she left the house. Unfortunately, the evidence blew away in the wind before it was collected.
Jeez.
Despite the front door being locked upon Richard arriving at the home, there was evidence to suggest that the suspect or suspects might have left through that, as it had a self-locking mechanism. But the button being on the window suggests that they left through the basement, and in order to get
And her shoe was in the basement, too.
I'm guessing she was unconscious.
Yeah.
Because to get her through that window, one guy would have to be underneath and one guy from above.
Yeah, it'd be hard to do climbing a ladder, carrying a body.
Yep. Tracking dogs were brought into the scene to help the investigators get a feel of where Evelyn's abductors went after leaving the house. They were able to follow the missing girl's scent 2 blocks, but unfortunately lost the trail just northwest of the Rasmussen home. This led to the theory that she had been placed in a vehicle that had been parked nearby. This was corroborated by numerous neighbors who came forward to say that they'd seen a suspicious car in the neighborhood that night. One reported seeing a light-colored vehicle circling around the neighborhood around 8 o'clock, while another claimed to have heard what sounded like screams outside at 7 p.m., but assumed that they were from children playing outside. This helped investigators develop a timeline which suggested that Evelyn had been abducted sometime in the hour between 7 o'clock and 8 o'clock. 2 days later, a local man by the name of Ed Heffer came forward to share with investigators the encounter he had with a 2-tone green 1941 or 1942 Buick on the night of Evelyn's disappearance. He said that he'd been out driving when around 7:15 p.m. he was almost hit by the vehicle. He looked, and inside the vehicle were 2 men and a woman. One of the men was driving the car, while the second was in the back seat with a woman who seemed to be slumped forward with her head against the front seat. He believed he'd seen the occupants staggering down the street a few minutes earlier, close to where the pools of the blood were later located. At the time, he hadn't thought anything of the encounter, and he'd assumed that they were heading to the homecoming game drunk, and Evelyn hadn't yet been reported missing. Several days after Evelyn's disappearance, a pair of underpants and a brassiere were located near the underpass on Highway 14, 2 miles south of La Crosse. Both were bloodstained, and the blood in the underpants was later determined to be menstrual blood of Evelyn's blood type. A pair of bloodstained men's pants were found 4 miles down the same road, but it's not known if they were connected to the case.
Good Lord.
Yeah, more bloodstained items were later located. A pair of size 11 Goodrich brand sneakers and a size 36 denim jacket. They were found 800 feet from each other in the Coon Valley area located southeast of La Crosse and had apparently been dumped only a short time before being found. As with the brassiere and underpants, the blood on both matched Evelyn's blood type, and the shoes, in particular, had a suction cup pattern that was very similar to the footprints found in the Rasmussens' home. Investigators contacted Goodrich and learned that that particular model had been sold in Wisconsin, Illinois, Iowa, Michigan, and Minnesota. Based on the tread pattern, it's believed that whoever owned them worked with machinery, and the wear pattern was distinctive of someone who frequently operated a Whizzer motorbike, which is like CSI stuff, like the pattern of, yeah. Inside of one was a single human hair, possibly belonging to an African-American individual, and it was determined that 2 different people had worn the shoes, with the second wearer's feet having been too big. So, I don't know. That's just weird.
Yeah.
Investigators heard a rumor a few days prior saying that the jacket was seen lying along the highway. They followed up and they found the jacket in possession of a local farmer who picked it up and thrown it into his truck, where it remained until it was taken into police possession. On this jacket were base metal paint flecks, and it had been cut off at the bottom and crudely rehemmed with white thread. One of the 4 buttons were also missing. There were blast fibers also found, similar to the kind used in scrub brushes, in the left-hand pocket, and there was a worn mark under the armpits, running the entire width of the jacket, which was similar to the wear of someone who worked as a steeplejack. I don't know what a steeplejack is. This led them into looking at local workers who worked in the trade, but it led nowhere. Investigators connected the jacket to the crime scene via spectrographic analysis, but noted that it appeared to be too small to have been worn by someone that was large enough to wear size 11 shoes. In the hope of garnering new leads, they brought the shoes and jacket to 31 different communities where 10,000 people viewed them, but nothing came from the showings. That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
Which is cool. Like, I like the idea that it's like, have you seen someone wearing this jacket? You know, like, that's kind of what we do now, where it's like, can you identify the person in this picture? Back then, they took the jacket on tour, apparently. Evelyn's disappearance resulted in one of the largest missing person searches in Wisconsin history, with 2,000 people volunteering. Searching on foot with the aid of watercraft, airplane, and helicopter were members of the local community, law enforcement officials, La Crosse State College faculty and students, the National Guard, and members of the Boy Scouts who combed the area in and around La Crosse. Squirrel and deer hunters were also asked to stay on alert for anything suspicious, while local farmers were asked to check their properties. Investigators conducted a mass search of local vehicles, suspecting the one belonging to the suspects would contain traces of Evelyn's blood. The rear seats and the trunk of each vehicle were the primary focus, and local law enforcement enlisted the help of gas station attendants, who were also asked to check. They were told to report the license plate numbers of anyone who refused to search, and the cars deemed clean by a search were marked with a sticker which read, quote, "My car is okay."
Wow.
So they went all out with this.
This is crazy.
Yeah, they went all out with this. That's why I kind of wanted to include this one, because a lot of times we accuse the police and the searchers of being kind of bumbling, but this one, I think they went all out, and I feel like they did a lot of stuff really well.
Yeah. A lot of stuff I've never heard of happening.
This one. Many recent graves were reopened during the early days of the investigation in case her abductors had decided to place her body in a burial plot.
Wow.
Krista's eyes are like, what?
This is shocking.
Clam Lake, located near Fairmont, Minnesota, was dragged after a fisherman said he'd caught a number of hair strands and a bobby pin in a hook after freeing his tackle from an underwater snag, all of which he threw back in the river. Neither they nor anything else of value was recovered, and the search was called off. In May 1954, investigators began to conduct mass lie detector tests on all male students and teachers at Central High School.
Oh my God.
In total, they planned to administer tests to over 1,750 individuals, but decided to halt the test after just 300 as the practice was controversial.
Yeah.
Evelyn's father and Viggo Rasmussen were also given polygraphs, but they passed, so they were good.
Can you imagine some nervous high school kid
Yeah.
who fails it because he's scared out of his wits?
That's the thing, is that lie detector tests are so
Yeah.
unreliable.
That seems really unethical.
You know, like a lot of we might have got into this at some point, but like the tests they like when they're I don't know if they still do this, but back in the day, to calibrate the machine, they'd say we're calibrating the machine, and they would do
They
like
ask you no.
they do like a card trick, and they'd say,
Oh, really?
they'd say pick a card from this deck, and they would ask the person, are you holding the 10 of clubs? And the person would say no, and they'd fiddle with it,
Interesting.
and then they'd say, are you holding? But it turns out it was a magic trick. They knew what the person had,
Yeah.
but they wanted to make the person believe
That they
the
didn't
lie
know.
detector was accurate. You know, so lie
Interesting.
detectors, we could do, maybe we should
We
do a
should.
side session on lie detector tests because
is
it's really
fascinating.
interesting. But yeah, to test 1,750.
Can you
Yikes.
imagine just being and only the boys?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Throughout the beginning of the investigation, the Hartleys repeatedly appealed for information regarding Evelyn's case. They also used the media to speak directly to those involved, asking them to somehow let them know what happened to her. As a result, they were the subjects of attempted extortion after a 20-year-old man offered to exchange information for a $500 fee. The family contacted the police and managed to ensnare the man in a trap.
$500, huh?
Yep. He, along with a 13-year-old boy he convinced to participate, were arrested, and he was subsequently convicted and imprisoned for the crime, which is horrible to give to. Yeah. Many suspects were questioned over the years, but investigators were never able to connect the evidence to any of them. Dozens of people falsely confessed, and during the first year, over 3,500 individuals were interviewed. Evelyn's case has always been considered a homicide despite her body never being found. Police say that every lead has been followed, and they currently have her dental records available for comparison should her remains be located. It has been revealed that the shoes and jacket were misplaced, but that there's so much losing evidence. But that other evidence has been maintained and stored.
So was this a small town?
Lacrosse?
Oh, Lacrosse.
Yeah. Aftermath, Janice, the 20-month-old baby Evelyn was babysitting that night, later spoke to the media and told them she'd learned about the case by reading the local newspaper. Her family never spoke about it much given its horrific nature, and they moved from the home not long after Evelyn disappeared. According to Janice, her father installed bars on the basement window, and her parents would not allow her or her sister to babysit growing up, which I totally get.
Yeah.
You know, the girl babysitting you gets killed. They're not going to
Right.
ever want you to be a babysitter.
Yeah.
Evelyn's parents eventually came to terms with the fact that they'd never find out what happened to their daughter. In the 1970s, they relocated to Portland, Oregon. They have both since passed away. One of her siblings still lives in Oregon, while the other moved to Australia, where they died in 2016. So most of her family isn't even around anymore. Theories. There's actually theories. 5 theories for this. Theory number 1, there are some who believe that Evelyn was not the intended target of the abduction, as she was filling in for the Rasmussens' regular babysitter.
Right.
If the abduction had been planned, the suspects would have assumed that the original babysitter would be at the residence that night, meaning that Evelyn was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
always reminds me of like horror movie scene where she's babysitting and people are trying to get into the house, you know? Theory number 2, since the majority of residents were at the homecoming game the night Evelyn went missing, it's theorized that the initial motive for the crime was robbery. As they knew most people wouldn't be home, it would have been a prime opportunity for any would-be thieves to stake out houses and steal valuables. However, while the living room was in disarray, nothing of value was said to be missing from the home. It's believed by some investigators that her abductors staked out the home, but that the robbery was botched when the suspects came upon Evelyn inside the residence. This is further corroborated by signs that an attempted forced entry was found on a neighbor's house. So it might have just been trying to...
Again, wrong
Yep.
place, wrong time.
Theory number 3, locals believe that the crime may have been a random attack by a homeless person who was passing through town. Those who support this theory thought it likely the drifter was high on drugs when he entered the house and attacked Evelyn. Don't know where...
But that kills the theory of there being 2.
Yeah, exactly. But there had to be 2, I think. Theory number 4, the strongest theory, and I thought this was interesting. The strongest theory is the result of an audio recording that was submitted to police in 2004. That year, a man named Mel Williams came forward with a recording. On the recording, which was initially intended to be a recording of a band performing at a local bar, in the background crowd conversations, a man named Clyde Peterson can be heard claiming that he, a man named Jack Golfair, and a named third party had murdered Evelyn and buried her in nearby Lafarge, Wisconsin. The tape ended after Peterson told Williams to stop recording, and Williams does not recall what happened after it was turned off. Police promised to investigate the lead, but no further developments were ever publicized. Golfier and the unnamed third party are now deceased. And I believe one of them,
That's
I believe
odd.
Golfier, whatever his name was, killed himself.
Wow.
And I don't remember, I might have heard the actual recording or read transcripts of it.
Huh.
But this guy was just recording
That's interesting.
recording a band in a bar, and there were people nearby talking, and you can hear, which is fascinating to me that they talked about how they killed her. So I don't know. And lastly, theory number 5, and this is also a theory for many of the previous ones I talked about, especially the one in Plainfield. What do you think theory number 5 is?
I have no idea.
Which is not true, in my opinion. Theory number 5, a popular theory is that serial killer Ed Gein was involved in many of these disappearances, including Evelyn's. Many believe him to have been involved as he was in La Crosse visiting relatives on the night that she went missing, just a few blocks from the Rasmussen home.
Okay.
But Ed Gein, like, if you don't know, we should do an episode on Ed Gein.
Yeah, is that his MO?
No, his MO was digging people up in the cemetery and making lampshades out of their skin. I mean,
Was he the one who was a clown?
No, that was...
Oh, am I getting two serial killers mixed up?
That was... what's his name? John Wayne Gacy.
Oh, yeah.
Ed Gein was in Plainfield, Wisconsin.
Yes, he was the one who made furniture out of people's skins. Nipples and stuff.
Yeah, he made... Yeah, we need to do an episode about him because he's fascinating. But
I have a picture of him in my head now,
but
yeah.
I don't remember if he specifically...
Did he target kids?
No. I think he had like a mom thing going on where it was like older... You know, I remember being in 7th grade reading the book about Ed Gein where they showed the picture of the body hung dressed like a deer and they showed a picture of the head that was in a pan on his stove. They showed the pictures. I mean, it was that probably traumatized 7th grade me. But I don't think any of these like follow his MO. Right. I just don't.
It sounds like we know everybody he killed.
Yeah, but they believe that he was involved with Evelyn's disappearance, the 2 men that went hunting, that their truck disappeared, and one other one. But it's just not his style. So I do not think Ed Gein was involved in that. But I don't know for sure. But I just don't think so because that was not his thing.
Yeah.
But he's a fascinating dude, so we're going to probably do an episode or a mini episode about him sometime. So that's what I got from Wisconsin.
So I looked up the population of La Crosse because the most perplexing thing of this whole case is the response. Like, why? I have never heard of this level of response from law enforcement for any missing persons case. And La Crosse, right now the population's like 55,000. So back then it probably would have been a lot less. And I wonder if 55,000 is when school is in session, because that's a major UW Wisconsin city.
Yep.
When school's not in session, is the population smaller? So maybe this is one of those things where nothing like this has ever happened there before. And they were like, we're going in with guns blazing, because I'm astounded.
Like to check all those cars and to put that sticker on the car if they checked it for blood.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So, I mean, they went all out and no trace of this girl was ever found. Wow. Part of me buys the story about those guys in the bar in the background of that audio recording that we're talking about.
That's intriguing, especially if one of them took their own life.
Yeah. Yeah. And
usually that's a guilt thing.
I think I got to hear, I don't know if it was on YouTube, but I'm pretty sure that I listened to the audio of it. So it's just a fascinating case.
Crazy.
So there's what I have for Wisconsin.
Whew.
This next part, the first part was very cut and dried, Wisconsin missing people. The second part gets into that weird, almost philosophical stuff that I like. And we're going to start it off with the story of the wheel. This first showed up when we did the episode about near-death experiences, and then I went down the rabbit hole of this one, and we got a lot for this. So this
near-death experiences, that was a while ago, huh?
That was this season.
It was?
I'm almost positive it was, wasn't it? Or was it last season? Because I had this sitting.
I don't remember half of the episode.
No, like I had the wheel notepad sitting on my desktop on my computer. So it might have been last season, but it just sat there. And then if I was done with researching one episode, I would go back to the wheel and I would look up stuff. And I did that over the last bunch of months. So, like I said, this is all like leftover stuff that's been on my desktop on my computer for a while.
Our listeners are probably like, duh, Krista, was season 6, episode 3.
Yeah, I don't know.
And I have no recollection of even.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember the topic and
That was our
talking
first
about it.
episode of this last season
Was
because
it?
it was the one they voted for was near. No, wasn't it? Or was that Doppelganger? I don't
All right,
remember.
I'm gonna
anymore.
look.
Krista's got to go look.
Move on. I'll look.
But this
It's gonna
one,
bother
this
me.
this showed up when I was researching cool near-death experiences, and this
Okay.
one was like, what? But then as I went into this, I found other stuff, and then from there I found other stuff. So this is also going to tie almost into the machine elves drug episode.
yep,
So yeah,
okay.
there's a lot in this one. This one gets pretty deep and philosophical and like Matrix. You know, this one will blow your
Oh.
mind. So grab a beer. You know,
Like we're in a simulation kind of stuff?
yeah, kind
Okay.
of, yes. So this gets into that. Like I said, the first half of this one was going to be cut and dried, missing people, true crime, and this next part is pretty.
It's going to make your head hurt.
this one's going to blow your mind. So,
I'm getting there. 6, 5. Doppelgangers was 4. Hobo Life. Ooh, 2021. I didn't see it yet.
okay, maybe it was last season. Maybe it was last season.
I don't even see it
Either
yet.
way, this wheel thing has been sitting on my desktop on my computer for months, if not a year. So I finally I'm like, we're going to do it. We're just going to put it all in this end of season leftovers episode.
Okay.
You ready?
I'm ready. I'm just going to keep scrolling. I am listening, though.
No, I want to find you. I want to wait till you find out.
Near Death, Season 5.
That was
Episode
last season.
2.
What?
Near Death
Holy cow.
Experiences.
So when did they get released?
It felt a really
when did it
long-
get
long time.
released?
Oh, dang. I just closed it.
Well, this has been sitting on my desktop. I've been working on this one on and off for well over a year.
I mean, Season 5, Episode 2, it had to have been
like a year
in
and
like
a half.
February.
Yeah, this one's been sitting on my
Almost-
desktop, and I've been putzing around.
That's almost 2 years
Yeah,
ago.
I've been putzing around with this one for almost 2 years.
Wow.
So here we go. The Wheel. This comes from a website where it's a really good website about near-death experiences where if people have a near-death experience, you go there, you fill out this form and describe it.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
this showed up when I was researching near-death experiences. You ready?
I'm
This is
ready.
the story of the Wheel. A friend persuaded me to submit this account against my natural tendency on the matter. I have no real interest in following it up or being contacted in any way. It was a very frightening episode for me. It's traumatic enough, to be honest, to recall it just once at length here. But having set out to describe it, I will be as frank and accurate as language will allow. On July 15th, 2013, at about 7:45 a.m., I was on my way to work and approaching an intersection and getting ready to take a left-hand turn. This is a notoriously dangerous intersection on any day, and there have been many accidents here. It is hard to see if the intersection is clear from the right, and the left turn is particularly hazardous. I was running late and in a flustered state of mind. I had an important meeting that I'd been planning carefully over the last couple days, and I had a really stupid delay at the last minute that put all of it in jeopardy. It should also be understood that a much better traffic signal system exists there today than was in place at the time of this incident. I approached the intersection in a hurry. I looked to the right and believed that I had correctly viewed that nothing was approaching from the right, so I made the left turn. As I crossed the intersection, I glanced right once more and saw a vehicle heading straight for me at what could only have been in excess of 90 miles an hour.
It probably wasn't there when he first
And
looked.
this part freaks me out. We saw each other. I saw the look in the other guy's eyes because we were that close.
Wow.
I mean, you're looking this way and the guy is coming right at you and you're looking, you can see the person
You're
looking at you.
making eye contact.
You're making eye contact with the person that is about to hit you. That just creeps me out.
That is scary.
The collision was absolutely inevitable. There is no way on this earth that it could have been avoided. What happens next is extremely difficult to describe, but I will do my best. And this can be, and must be, taken to apply to everything that I am going to attempt to relate from this point on. Words, even the most carefully chosen ones, capture no more than 1% of this experience at best, and even then very poorly. This is quite possibly the most frustrating thing about giving this account. In that moment, across from the front of the car on the left, in almost the opposite direction to the oncoming vehicle, was a field. I suddenly became aware of a very large object approaching slowly on a diagonal across this field. It was coming directly towards my car. Time was not functioning normally when this happened, if it was functioning at all. I had the space to notice this happening, but I can't explain how I was able to do that. The object, when I first saw it, appeared to be about the size of a 10-floor tower block. It subjectively seemed to be about 200 or 300 yards across the field. These size and distance descriptions are meaningless, as I'll try to explain in a moment. This object resembled, now for this, think about a mill, like a picture of a mill where you have the water wheel
Okay.
that powers it.
Yeah.
This object resembled a giant water wheel lying on its side and rotating as it approached me and my vehicle. As it got closer, this didn't take time as we understand it. I saw that my first observation about its size was wildly inaccurate. It was more like the size of a small city. As it got closer still, I understood that all scale and distance estimates were meaningless. It was larger than what we think of as the world. As it approached me, I became aware of its power and significance. My mind interpreted this as being an up-close, giant-scale physical object. Okay, now this part is particularly difficult to explain. As this object drew near to me, a kind of sensation came over my person, and I knew exactly what this thing was. Not only that, but I knew everything that pertained to it, what it was doing, what its business was with me, and where and when I had seen it before, why I was seeing it now, and many, many other things that I cannot right now recall. I'd seen the object before I was born, and I will see it again when I die. We all know it before we are born. We will all see it when we die. But this information is eclipsed from us while we are alive. And that was why I was seeing it now in this experience, because I was in the process of dying in a fatal car crash. Here's what I can remember as best as words can explain it. This wheel wasn't something that moved towards me through the world or through reality somehow. That was an illusion that my senses were constructing for me. The wheel was reality itself. It represented every conceivable possibility for a life or a world that could ever be envisioned or imagined. As it approached, I became aware that what we call our world was contained within this wheel. It was simply one of the numberless slots or paddles in this water wheel. It had always been so. My life, your life, our world, all of us. We were a part of this wheel structure, and we had always been a part of this structure. It simply now made itself visible to me. There, see, I talked about this is a mind blower. There then began the truly terrifying dimension of this experience. Words cannot even begin to describe the level of fear I experienced. The water wheel sort of rolled over to me and then across the place where my car was in the road. As it did so, I began to be hit by each of the paddles in the wheel. Remember that all of this is just a way of talking. It does not and cannot remotely describe the situation as it actually was. But some sense of it can be had by imagining that in the space of each paddle, there was a kind of spinning film of water, like a waterfall on its side. Imagine a film of water being thrown outward from a wheel in each slot as if by centrifugal force. Imagine being slapped or splashed by each of these films as you collide with it and pass through it to the next one. This is what was happening. Except these weren't just films of water. They were, for want of a better term, possible realities or what we might think of as universes or worlds. Again, our world, our entire universe as we normally think of it, was simply one among an infinite number of these. How did I know that there was an infinite number? I just did. A kind of knowing came with the event, and there was no doubting this knowing. It was so, and I knew it was so. And because I had knowledge and understood what was happening in ways I can no longer explain, I was afraid. I understood that I was about to be subject to the process that humans approximated with the term reincarnation. This was why the wheel had come. I represented a kind of discrepancy that had to be fixed. The event, or perhaps the imminent event on the highway, had caused me to slip out or fall between the paddles on the wheel. The structure had some kind of cosmic purpose of sorting things into their correct natural place. I was afraid and resisted being sorted, so that when the wheel stepped up, its aggressive attempts to sort me started happening more vividly. Told you this is weird.
Yeah, I'm struggling to follow this.
Like think of a pad, like I said, a mill wheel on its side.
Yeah.
And in between each
smacking him with universes.
Between each of the paddles is a universe. With this came another understanding that frightened me even more. I knew that unless I selected one of these realities to slide back into, that the wheel would fix the situation by deciding for me. One way or another, I would be sorted whether I liked it or not. If I didn't choose for myself, I would simply be fitted into place at the nearest position on the wheel to the point where I failed to make the final decision, if that makes sense. I was aware of having a limited ability to choose, but not much. Even that limited ability wasn't much use because each reality slammed against me and through me before I could make much sense of what they contained. Even I did not remain the same from one slot in the wheel to the next. It was as if each film breaking over me, I was destroyed and made again from the ground up as a completely new self. There was no continuous me that traveled unaltered through the wheel that can somehow report back on this experience. This is just one of the many things that is so hard to explain. The very idea of a continuous self was contradicted by this experience. I have forgotten, or perhaps it was deliberately suppressed, the vast majority of what I saw in the various universes or paddles on the wheel. At the beginning, they seem very similar to this world we inhabit or believe ourselves to inhabit. For example, I have a floating memory of seeing various different scenarios of how the accident played out. I suspect that these were all nearby paddles on the wheel. In one of them, I remember seeing what looked like my vehicle thrown right off the road and so badly damaged that it looked like it had been folded in the center like a pocket knife. I seem to recall many other scenarios like this that I can no longer remember. To clarify, what I mean is that I seem to file or flip through numerous conceivable quantum possibilities for the outcome of this accident. I can remember doing this, but I cannot remember what any of these particular worlds contained. I have no explanation for why I failed to experience any of the phenomena usually reported with near-death experiences like the tunnel, the light, or so on. I suspect that imminent death experiences are symbolic scenarios that flash up just as someone is entering or exiting the wheel, but before the situation has developed very far. At no stage did I see anything whatsoever that resembled what we humans would think of as an afterlife or spirit world or life after death realm. It's as if we are either on the outer surface of the wheel itself, or we are in one of its realized worlds, or else we are dead and we are the wheel itself. The wheel is a space where all uncreated possibility exists, but nothing completed or actual. And bear in mind that nothing was concealed from me. I was the all, and I knew the all. I certainly don't retain it or pretend to retain it, but I knew it then. I began to grow extremely panicked. Each time I thought I was just beginning to get a handle on things, I would be slapped over violently and ruthlessly into a new slot on the wheel, and a whole new me would crystallize along with all the memories and assumptions that went along with that world. I remembered none of who I was just a moment ago in another paddle on the wheel. I had no memory whatsoever of where I had come from or the highway situation in my world. I had zero memory of that world. I knew I had come from somewhere, but had no recollection of where that was or even who I was. It was about the most bizarre thing that you could ever imagine. Somehow, though, and I can only assume it happened without any conscious action on my part, the possibilities appearing in the wheel began to narrow down and to become somewhat familiar again. Scenarios associated with the accident began to appear once more. I say once more, but I have no real way of knowing whether this was a separate incident to this or what I've described above, or whether it was really the same incidents because time was functioning so unusually during this whole episode. Again, I seem to see variations or possible world outcomes where I died in the crash. I seem to understand intuitively that if I went into any of these, I would be there for only a few moments or minutes at most, and then I would have to come back out and face the wheel again almost immediately. I didn't want to do this, but there was an odd kind of knowing associated with that too. The wheel didn't seem to care one way or the other. It didn't seem to matter to it whether I emerged again in 3 minutes' time or 3 decades' time. All it cared about was sorting me, and there was a kind of ruthlessness in that I will never forget. I then found myself back on the highway in what seemed to be a very short distance back up the road, still approaching the intersection. This is just one of the many mysteries associated with the event that I cannot explain. Did I choose a world which was a version of our universe where the accident hadn't happened yet, but was just seconds away from happening? I can't say because I have no memory of making that decision. I remember the look on that driver's face as clearly as if it were yesterday. I remember him bracing back on the wheel before the collision, but I braked as I reached the intersection, and that driver or his car were simply nowhere to be found. So then they ask questions in this thing too. And one of the questions is, during your experience, did you gain information about the existence of a God? He answers, uncertain. This is also hard to answer. What I appeared to be aware of was a cosmic process. At the same time, I both was this process and this process was happening to me, if that makes sense. What I call the water wheel seemed to contain every possibility that could ever exist. One can infer from this that it includes the brightest and most glorious possibilities that human can imagine, but then, of course, the same applies in the opposite direction. If there was any kind of benign source that nudged towards or favored what we would think of as the positive outcomes over the negative ones, I did not encounter that or have any awareness of its existence during the experience. If anything, the whole thing had a weird, disturbingly mechanical feel. I don't mean to imply that I felt this process was consciousness or this process or some kind of consciousness was malign in any way. It's more as if there was simply no limits to its curiosity and what possibilities it was willing to manifest. There was, or what seemed to be, a kind of ruthlessness about it that we would not recognize as human. Perhaps as a post-human, we might retain some say or coloring to what possibilities show forth for us. I would like to believe that, but again, I have no evidence. And another question is, how accurately do you remember this experience in comparison to other life events that occurred around the time of the experience? And the person says, I remember the experience more accurately than any life events that occurred around the time of the experience. Those aspects remembered are remembered very vividly. However, I also have the sense that a great deal more happened that I cannot remember. Absurd though it may sound to say it, I don't rule out the possibility that I actually knew everything there was to know during this experience. I knew the details of what exists in every single variation on that wheel, but for some reason our human nature cannot retain such information while keeping our sanity. I would support that interpretation, to be honest, because even the tiny amount I do retain seems to be a threat enough to my sanity. So there you go. That is this person's encounter with this wheel. So yeah. And this kind of gets into the idea of quantum immortality. I think we've talked about that a couple times. There's a old quantum physics thought experiment called Schrodinger's cat, where to a quantum physicist, you have a box that has a cat in it in front of you, and inside the box, which you cannot see into, there's a device that after every minute has a 50-50 chance of emitting a poisonous gas to kill the cat. So after 1 minute, you're looking at the box, can't see into it. A normal person like us would say the cat is either alive or dead, but to a quantum physicist, you would say the cat is both alive and dead at the same time.
Because you don't know.
Because it doesn't happen until you observe what happens.
Does a tree make a sound when it falls if no one's
there
to hear it?
To a quantum physicist,
situation?
the cat is both alive and dead at the same time. And a lot of this comes from the light slit experiment, which is kind of too much to get into right now. But, it's like the basic...
I remember talking
it's
about
basically the act of observing something influences the actions, influences it.
Yeah.
But then they say, instead of the cat in the box, say, I am in the box. And there is a gun in front of me that after every minute, it's going to say there are 5 bullets in the 6 bullet holding chamber. Every minute it's going to fire, it's going to rotate, and then shoot at me. So then it's going to say that at the end of 1 minute, it's going to split off into 2 different parallel universes. It's going to split off into 2 different realities. Yeah. One where I get shot and killed, and one where I don't because there's not a bullet in the chamber.
Sure.
And then they say that because I am observing it, one of me is always going to go into the one that doesn't get killed.
Gotcha.
And then when you go to that one, after a minute, it's going to split into 2, one where you die, one where you don't die. And it's going to say, because of quantum physics, there is always going to be a version of me that does not die. And even when I get old enough that I will die of old age, one of the realities will have something where they make it so that my life is extended. So there is always a version of each of us that lives an infinite life.
Wow.
Which is a pretty mind-blowing.
It's hard to wrap your head around.
It is. But it's like if I die driving home today in a car accident.
Don't say that.
I know, but the me that is dead, but in countless other parallel universes, I'm still alive.
Am I there in the other universes?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's like like the show Fringe. And this is a spoiler if you haven't watched Fringe. But all the weirdness started because Walter's son, Peter, died drowning when he broke through the ice on that pond. And Walter figured out a way to get into a parallel universe, so he went to the nearby parallel universe and stole that Peter to raise as his son. And that's how all the stuff started. So like where I would die in this reality, other realities, and we don't know because right now every single action we're doing, every single moment splits off into parallel realities. So yeah, so it's
getting crowded up in here.
It's mind-boggling.
So do you think this was like an experience showing him these parallel
Yeah,
realities?
showing him what reality is.
Do you think it's possible he was just unconscious before he technically died and was having a
and I also think
wild
it's possible.
dream?
I think it's super possible this person is lying through their teeth just to make
Yeah.
an interesting near-death experience.
Do you think it also has like weird extraterrestrial vibes about it too in
It
some
does,
areas?
but we're also going to get into some more stories now because again, once I read this one, I went down the rabbit hole of wheel stuff like
Okay.
this. And this person, like, I believe this person because they also went on Reddit and posted, has this ever happened to anybody? And it's like his same story, basically, but a little different. It's like a little change, but it's also...
Doesn't that make you wonder if it was...
It does, but it also kind of makes it... But then, here's kind of the same one. I think this is the same person on Reddit. I'm curious if anyone has ever had an NDE or near-death experience where they experienced the wheel. Whatever this thing was, I perceived it as an impossibly huge wheel on its side, its paddles seeming to slosh energy,
Yeah, this sounds like the same
and each
guy.
paddle representing a possible timeline where I could be resorted. It was aware but non-human, mechanical, determined, powerful, like a core engine of our reality. This is like Stephen King Dark Tower stuff.
I was totally
almost.
thinking this
Yeah.
has Stephen King vibes
Yeah.
all over it.
It's my belief that I died in a car accident. When I was no longer incarnate, I was in limbo.
Was it confirmed that he actually died? That's what I'd like to know. Like this happens to people; they die and they're brought back.
Oh, this guy didn't die. Because he went back and he went into the paddle section and he went back to before he hit that intersection, and he slowed down when he got to that intersection, but the other driver was never there.
So he's saying he undid what was
Yes.
happening?
Yes.
Oh, I missed that part.
Yes, he undid what was happening.
So he didn't actually
Well, I was no
die.
longer incarnate. I was in limbo, and the wheel approached, continuously spinning. It would pull me into a timeline. I would be rebuilt physically and psychically, and then if something didn't feel right about the timeline, my being would instantly crumble, and I'd see the wheel spinning again until I was pulled into another timeline. It was like the pages of a book being flipped frantically. At that point, things blacked out. I didn't have a conscious thought until I woke up sharply inhaling. I was in my car, not mangled by the vehicle, which had originally slammed directly into my car door. So yeah, he said, I'm surprised because I remember the sorting wheel very vividly. In my research, others have experienced or something similar. So has anyone else seen this thing? Somebody else replies, I've experienced something similar, but really couldn't ever explain it in any other way except for calling it the, quote, machine. You did an excellent job describing the indescribable. Somebody else says, not a near-death experience, but I've also seen that thing. I terrified the living crap out of my girlfriend at the time and my roommates. I was standing up. I had just passed some blood in my urine, and I knew a kidney stone would soon be on the way. I walked in the room, said, I don't feel so good, and I collapsed right there. I passed out, but I also saw this large wheel that reminded me of an old movie film reel. It was floating in space, blue sparkled background with bits of white and silver everywhere. I could feel myself being pulled into one of the images on the reel when suddenly I became that image. I was walking down the street, looking out to an amber horizon on a sidewalk. After about 10 seconds, I knew something wasn't right and tried to pull myself out of it as though I wanted to wake up from a dream. I saw streaks of static across my vision, and I clicked into the next reel. Another life of mine showed up, but it wasn't right. One reel click from the other every 10 seconds. 7, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, then rapid fire, and then I screamed in this world and in my natural one. I woke up on the floor screaming, trying to get back to reality. Eventually, I found the correct reel image, and I woke up to my roommates.
That's freaky.
Yep. Somebody else replies, wow, you saw the mechanics of reality. Have you met the operators yet? That's weird. And then the person replies, this person replies from the collapsing on the living room floor, says, no, in my experience, I felt like there was no one controlling it. In the original account of the wheel, the long one I read, there was a questionnaire that asked more questions about religion, and the original poster said they weren't religious before or after the experience. I've been thinking about this so much, and one of my theories is that the wheel or the sorter appears to us in ways that we would understand to a certain degree. So people who aren't ready or able to see or experience the wheel will end up experiencing, quote, the tunnel or the more usual out-of-body experiences. I feel like the whole we shape our reality thing is true, but that means our brains would interpret paranormal phenomena within the bounds of our current perceptual capacity, if that makes sense. So it's saying that people that see the tunnel of light are actually seeing the wheel, but they can only see what their mind will allow them to see, which is
Sure.
the tunnel of light.
Okay.
Somebody else says, I know this is probably just a meaningless coincidence, but as I was reading this article, I was watching an episode of Law and Order SVU in the background. When I reached the end of the original story and was thinking about it, Olivia Benson said out loud, quote, and so the wheel keeps turning. Talk about synchronicity.
Yeah.
So that's kind
We
of
love
cool.
a good synchronicity.
Yep. Somebody else writes, when I was a boy, I had a vision. I could see a wheel of my life spinning before me. There were sections in the wheel, and in each section of the wheel was a different part of my life going on, moving like a motion picture. I could take journeys from this outside point of view into the wheel and experience what was going on in that part of my life, and then come back out again to this external viewpoint. The reason I say this is I found it interesting that I was not allowed to remember my future. I don't know why. That's just how it happened. Somebody else says, this is getting more into like weird stuff. Somebody else says, this is going to sound bizarre, but I had a nightmare a few months ago after a near-death experience when I was 11 or 12. I don't know if this lines up to your story, but this unearthed the memory, so here we go. Sum up attempt. A solid iron rod, about 2 inches thick, struck me in the face, dropping me where I stood. My sister said I was laying there not breathing for what she said felt like an eternity, but it couldn't have been more than 1 minute. Suddenly, she said I sprang up screaming, scaring her half to death, and ran to the house. Most of what I remember was looking up before the pipe hit and then being in the car on the way to the hospital. The dream I had about this, from what I can remember, I'm 31 now. In the dream, I was in a void except a spinning wheel or a ladder that I was hanging onto by the sides. I couldn't see the whole thing I was hanging onto, but inside the openings of the wheel or the ladder were different places and times and realities. I didn't think about it much at the time while I was desperately climbing from one reality window to the next, seemingly looking for my home, my reality. Climbing down, up, left, right had little meaning in that place. Whatever the ladder was, it was spinning, and there was an understanding that I was clinging to it outside of time. Now that I think about it, this is around the time that I started wondering in the back of my mind if I had somehow slipped into a different reality. Everything felt off just slightly, and only certain things would be obvious to me as being wrong for what I had previously known. Doctor said it was lucky it was more serious. I didn't have a concussion, just a severe headache and 16 stitches in my face. I was told while being sewn up that had the pipe struck any higher, I'd definitely be dead. I wasn't in a coma, and that was miraculous. I tried asking my parents about it and the other experiences I had, but they just laughed it off. So another person seeing this wheel or something.
Did you know there's a tarot card, the wheel?
Yep.
Do you get to that?
I don't. I get to that a little bit.
Okay. Because it lines up.
Yeah, I get to it a little bit.
Okay.
And one thing that I don't go into a whole ton, but is really interesting. Let me go to the end of this. One thing that I don't really go into, but I could have, but that would have been another rabbit hole on its own because I still have a lot more to go through. Holy buckets, do I still have a lot more to go through? This is going to be a long episode. I might have to skip some of them. Shoot. I don't know if I have it in here. Hang on.
Time
Okay.
is passing.
It is in I believe it's the Old Testament. There are mentions of something called the Ophanims, which are angelic beings, but they are in the form of a wheel.
Oh, interesting.
And there's the whole thing with, I think it was Ezekiel's wheel. So there's a lot of wheel, but then on the other hand, a wheel is very much a
symbolic
thing. So yeah, I think I do touch on the wheel.
Tarot.
Yeah, but there was a lot more than I expected there to be about people seeing this wheel thing. So now we go back to wow, there's a lot here. I might not even get to some of this because there's a lot. So after this one, somebody else says, I wish I could talk to the person who wrote the original report. I had a similar experience one night. I don't know what this is. I had a nang. No idea before mine, so I may have been about to die from starving my brain of oxygen. I don't know. I was lying on my couch in the lounge with a few mates, and then everything disappeared, like my vision went black and I was in a void. The only thing I could see was a small light off in the distance, that all of a sudden it was right in front of me and it was huge. It was a giant wheel. After reading the comments here and doing a little research, I'd say it looks similar to the Wheel of Samsara, and that is...
So, by the way,
Yeah.
Nang
Yeah.
is slang in Australia,
Yeah.
and he just said he was with his mates for doing basically a whippet,
Okay.
nitrous
We're
oxide.
going to get into some of the drug stuff in a bit.
Okay.
But this person says he blacked out and there was a giant wheel in front of him that was similar to the Wheel of Samsara. And I believe that's a big thing in, I think, is Buddhism, like the
Yes.
Wheel of Life,
Yeah.
like the Wheel of Life. He said, I don't remember much of the experience, only that I somehow knew in that moment that everything happens again and again. The wheel I saw had millions of sections, each one being a different moment in time. I was told to choose a moment. And then I was transported there. I looked around and I was sitting in my friend's lounge instead of my own. It didn't last long. Once I thought of my own home, I suddenly felt like I was being pulled out, and then I was being sucked through every single moment that had ever occurred. When I was coming back, I felt like I was being slotted into a million different versions of myself through different realities or worlds to see which one fit. It was exactly like being sorted. I had the feeling like time was trying to catch up with itself. Once back in my own body, I had this sense that I had just uncovered some great secret, but it's like trying to remember a dream that quickly disappears. What I've written here is all I can remember of my own experience. Somebody else says, I had 2 near-death experiences, and I experienced a wheel like what he talks about, but the second time it was more like a dial or a mechanism of a combination lock, and I immediately understood why it looked like that. Also, with that sorting experience, I went through something similar as well, only I let the machine pick for me how to deal with me. Very interesting. Thanks for sharing here. Somebody else says, when I was a child, I had my tonsils removed. I remember being very scared the days before the surgery. The first thing I remember is that I had to inhale gas from a mask. Then I felt myself slipping or spiraling into an unconscious state. Soon after that, I noticed it was all yellow around me, a very warm yellow. I had a broader field of vision, and I remember that I did not realize what happened to me, but I was very alert and curious. In the corner of the room I was in, I could feel something warm, and I heard beautiful music coming from something. I turned my head to the right, and I could clearly see a mandala wheel. This wheel rotated very slowly, but I also had the feeling that this wheel could not be stopped no matter what. It was a very solid, slow, relentless movement. This wheel had rings in it, and they rotated the wheel. And inside this rotating wheel, I saw small black figures that rotated with the wheel. I remember I was fascinated and curious about these figures. They did not frighten me at the time of this experience. Next thing I remember is that I could see myself from right above. I saw people dressed in green and a lot of blood. Then I started to feel a lot of pain. I must have awoken too early from the surgery. So, Yep. There's a whole other ton of stuff here. I don't think I'm going to have time to get to, but there are a lot.
There's also the Wheel of the Year, which is like this all the Sabbats, celebration of the cycles.
Yep. And somebody writes here, there's a phrase in Latin that says, oh God, I can't pronounce this. Alea jacta est, sed nonnum apulae, which translate into English as, quote, the die is cast, but has not yet landed, i.e. the dice are still in the air and the numbers can't be seen yet, so you don't know what the decision will be. Within that moment of infinite potential, all possible decisions are viable. I've heard a number of stories on the same subject of this, of folks getting into fatal accidents, and then suddenly they find themselves back on the road a minute or so before the accident happens, so they have time to take evasive action. It could be that people in those situations go through the same wheel of time as the original poster did, and the decision was made for some reason to just send them back, but without the awareness of the process. Then somebody else says, yes, the Wheel of Fortune, not the game show, but the one referred to in the tarot. Maybe it's a literal thing. It just begs the question, how deep does the tarot rabbit hole go? That's another episode we could maybe do. Did the first creators of the tarot deck experience maybe the same as the original poster? Is this why the symbolism of these cards has always interested me so much? The Rider-Waite deck depicts the Wheel of Fortune with the human eagle, calf, and lion in the corners, just like the World card. Interestingly, these are also the same 4 faces that Ezekiel describes in the Bible in his vision of the wheels. There's also the depictions of the fixed cross of the zodiac, Aquarius, Scorpio, Taurus, and Leo. The Wheel of Samsara depicts 6 worlds surrounded by 12 links of originating dependence. I'd say this rabbit hole goes deep. So then we get into this part, which is the next part, is about something called salvia, which is a drug. Like, I've never heard of it before this. And somebody writes, I know this sub doesn't count experiences you have on drugs, but a high percentage of users of salvia experience a wheel. I'll briefly describe what it looked like to me. It was huge. It was Earth-sized, like the Earth was half a sphere divided into many small slices. Each slice was itself a life or universe or whatever, but they were all my spirit, but different bodies. Inside the half of the sphere was being alive and having your senses dulled by you being a meat bag. Being on the outside, I interpreted this as being dead. And then there's a ton of people reporting salvia trips, seeing this wheel. Some of them are really long. The wheel you describe is one of the most common things people see when they smoke salvia. I've seen it, and it was one of the most mind-blowing things I've ever experienced. Although while you say you weren't too scared while encountering it, my experience was very dysphoric, and I felt like I got stuck between the paddles and thought I would never be able to return to reality. You get a feeling that this wheel is bigger than all scale. I hope you are able to see it again. Somebody else says, for me, it wasn't salvia, but it was acid. I see some parallels with my trip. The 2 tabs I took were gel tabs. At the time, I didn't realize how strong a dosage that was. I'm not sure I was able to see the physical wheel. The best way I can describe it is that I was looking at different realities through the spinning of a film reel. Every single square represented a different reality, and somehow I was aware of this. I just was. It's very difficult to explain. Basically, at the moment the reel was being shown to me, I was being asked to choose a reality by something or someone. I'm really not sure. But as much as I tried to remember my friends, family, and past experiences, I couldn't. I was constantly being reborn, remade, and molded into myself, but in a different reality with different life experiences. I felt like I was losing the grasp of reality, to be honest. That is, until I made a decision and realized I just wanted to see my family and friends again. I didn't want things to be different. When I came back, so to speak, I felt like I had traveled somewhere. I felt like I'd been gone for an eternity, but I had definitely found a new appreciation for life afterwards. I feel like I've also seen this thing after taking salvia. I remember at the time searching for answers to what life was, what its purpose was. I felt its presence, and I knew within my being that reality is just a massive wheel rotating like a machine, and each one of our lives is a blip on the machine. The whole time with the experience, I felt like I was being told what was being uploaded into my mind. They said that there were endless simulated realities, that none of them are the real one, and that this is all some kind of game or training ground for when we actually, quote, wake up. I felt my eternal family yearn for me outside of the simulation, like they were calling for me to wake up from the machine I was strapped to, like I was in a coma, and this life was the dream, and that death in here was the escape to the outside. They then told me that many people come to this realization, and that this is the fulfillment of all realizations. They said that people who are deemed crazy and locked up are the ones who believe these thoughts. And now I had believed, because they said that I would be locked up too. Or the world and the simulation that was created for me would do everything in its power to convince me that it's not a simulation.
I think it's interesting, just the idea of people consuming the same substance having the same experience, like the Hat Man and what is it, Benadryl?
Yeah, like the machine elves. Yeah, the machine elves. And with salvia, it's seeing this wheel.
That's weird.
So it's weird that how many people experience this. Somebody else says on ayahuasca once.
You said it right.
Yeah. I saw what looked like an old Rolodex that would spin very quickly, and I would grab a random card out of it, which would instantly project me into a new identity or life for a few moments. The only one of those identities I can recall at the moment was finding myself driving through what looked like the English countryside in what appeared to be the 60s or 70s and saying, "Look at all the sheep," to my 2 little kids in the car with me, and then suddenly I was back to the cosmic Rolodex for another pull. To clarify, I don't have any children, and I wasn't in my current body in that experience, and it seemed completely real to me at the time. So there's a bunch more here.
It's surprising to me that this many people have had this experience.
Yeah, it surprised me too, because I did not expect this. I have one that is super duper long, and I might maybe save that for next season when we have time to kill for something. But there is a lot of this. There is a lot of stuff. I'm going to end this. Somebody else writes, wow, how many respawns do you get before you run out? And somebody responds, only 3 lives, unless you did up, up, down, down, left, right, BA, start. Then you get 30. So I skipped.
Only gamers will understand
Yeah,
that.
I remember Contra, the old Contra.
Oh,
I remember
funny.
doing that code all the time to get 30 lives because that was such a hard game.
That's so funny.
So now I'm going to get into a couple non-wheel stories that kind of I thought were interesting. Somebody else writes, I have only told a handful of people this story, but I recently heard a story on one of those YouTube channels that reads creepy posts from Reddit, and the story was so similar I just had to share it. I just graduated high school and wanted to take a semester off before starting college so that I could decide what I wanted to focus on. A good buddy of mine decided to go to a PSU branch campus, which was very close to where I lived, like less than an hour. The drive there is half back roads and half highway. The highway has an average speed limit of 65, and even on a busy day, cars typically go about that fast. It's just not that busy. This will be relevant later. One night, I decided to drive up and visit my friend. It was around 7 or 8 p.m. when I left my house, so I expected the trip to take about 45 minutes. At that time, I had just discovered my love for Pink Floyd, so I loaded up the wall and just got lost in thoughts as I was driving. This happens to me a lot. It's not unusual for me to drive entire trips and forget everything about the drive. I just show up and feel as though I had just left a minute before. Anyway, I was on the highway following a truck. I'm talking about a semi-truck, not like a Ford F-150. When I came back online and realized the truck and I were going under the speed limit. I don't know how long I was behind it, probably just like a minute or two, but I didn't want to follow him any longer. Before passing, I noticed that another semi was coming up behind me on the left. We were the only 3 vehicles on this stretch of road. Now, anybody who rides on these roads knows that when one truck decides to pass another, they're committed to doing it regardless of the fact that they are only going like 1 mile an hour faster. I see that all the time on the highway when I'm driving down here, meaning that it takes forever for the truck to pass. I didn't want to wait, so I just floored it and tried to sneak out in front of the truck. The gap between the 2 trucks was probably just the size of my car. I didn't make it. The rear of my car caught the very front of the truck behind me, and the truck in front of me was so close that the front of my car then hit the back. It happened so fast, but the next thing I knew, my car was airborne. This sounds so frightening.
Yeah.
Getting repeatedly hit by both vehicles as my car is being lifted and then thrown off the road into the grass on the side of the highway. It was a horrific experience, and there is no way that a person could survive that. My car was completely demolished. At the moment my car landed, in a matter of less than 1 second, my vision backed out of my body, out of the car, looking at the wreckage, and then back into my body, back into the car, following the slow-moving truck. It was actually a physical feeling that knocked me back in my seat. I looked back to see the other truck coming up behind me and decided not to pass until he did. So it's so weird when I hear stories like that. I can't begin to tell you how real it was. I can still feel it, though not quite with the same intensity. The emotions were basically OF. You can imagine what he said.
Yeah.
I'm
Fudge.
OF. Oh fudge. I'm
fudge.
going to die. I sort of accepted at that point that I was just going to die.
This is so Final Destination.
Yeah. Yep. And then I had this incredible panic, and then I was back inside my car as my point of view rapidly shot back into my body 15 or seconds before. Then I just drove to the campus with a million questions, pondering the way life works. For the rest of the car ride, I actually came up with a visualization for the way I feel the universe works. Essentially, it's an infinite sea of pillars, each one representing a timeline. I was inside of one pillar going on one path, and in that pillar, I died. To everyone else, they went on as though I no longer existed. But my consciousness jumped to another pillar where I didn't die. And that's like quantum, like I said, that's kind of like what quantum immortality
Bless
is.
you.
Yep. I remember wondering if every other memory that I have was something that happened to a different version of me. So if I jumped to a different pillar that was so similar that nothing changed except me dying, or if I actually did die, but I'm just living out the last few minutes of my life in electrical impulses in my brain. I've never been able to make real sense of what happened. Did I die in that reality and enter a new one? It's been 16 years since this happened. Talking about it now even gives me chills and makes me very emotional. What's also strange is that every few years, sometimes for months at a time, I get this nagging feeling like I'm not awake, like I'm stuck in a dream, and most of the time I feel like it's not my dream. That creeps me out.
Weird.
I had another experience a few years later that was so crazy it really started to enforce the idea that maybe I'm not even real, but a character in a larger consciousness, or maybe a simulation. I didn't see what that one was. So another person says, when I died, I saw a field with trees on both sides. I could see water. I felt like there was an ocean on one side of the path. If you can imagine, and I could totally picture this, if you can imagine the fields that electrical lines go through where there is no people there or houses, and they just clear the area for the power lines, it was like that. There was a tree in the middle and a very well-worn path around it. I was walking the path. It looked like an oak tree. It was very large, and I felt a presence come to walk with me. I told it that I was ill and that this seemed like a nice place. The entity, I'm not religious, so I don't know what it was, told me that I'm not done and that I need to return, that I would be happy one day. This place was so peaceful and beautiful, but the forests on either side seemed dark and scary. There's trees on both sides, and it seemed like a place I didn't want to go. I only wanted to keep walking towards the water. Then I saw a bright light and woke up in the ICU. I don't want this to turn into some kind of religious debate or anything like that. This was my experience. Take it at that. Yep, somebody else writes, I was driving home, was about 2 stoplights from my turn. I could see the upcoming stoplight about a quarter of a mile away. Ahead of me were a few cars about to go under that stoplight with nothing in between us. I can't recall if I was feeling for the AC button or the radio button, but my hand was feeling around when my eyes were on the road. I cut my eyes down and then back up, no more than 1 second apart, so I could see what I was trying to find with my hand. Somehow in that 1 second, as I looked back up, traffic had stopped at the light. I was much closer to it now, and I felt like I just jumped ahead from traffic going under the light to the cars being stopped. I had 0 time to react. All I could do was close my eyes, and I remember thinking, God, please don't let me kill anyone else. There was no time to process just how this happened. I closed my eyes, gripped the steering wheel, and braced for an impact that never came. All was quiet. The next thing I remember is hearing sounds and didn't understand what they were. As they began to fade in more and more, it was the sound of traffic whizzing by. I opened my eyes and released my grip I had on the wheel and was confused. I was now sitting in a grassy median between the 6 lanes of traffic all flowing along normally. How did I get here? How was the crash? If there was no crash, then how did I arrive in the median? It was all impossible. I sat there for minutes in a daze trying to reconstruct how I missed an accident that was there and wasn't there 1 second later. So, yeah.
That's crazy.
Yep. And then somebody else writes, and this is another kind of topic, I'm interested in the idea that people choose details of their lives before they are born. Has anyone here experienced something like that during a NDE? Based on things I've read, it seems like it's usually about someone having chosen the circumstances of their current life beforehand, but also that it's just one of many human lifetimes which we are chosen to participate in to learn different lessons. What would be the end goal? Are there different levels of consciousness after death, and learning more things raises your level or something like that? And that reminds me of the Dark Tower series.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't want to give any spoilers, but that reminds me of like the Dark Tower series. Somebody else writes, from what I was shown in my near-death experience, the life plan you put in place before you come into being is just that, a plan. As I said to someone else, if you make a plan to drive from New York to LA, you can always deviate from it. In fact, if you decide you want to stop in Vegas and stay with a friend and not even go to LA, you can. That doesn't mean that you started out without a plan. If you just want to get there, all you have to do is have a plan and you're not wandering the U.S. willy-nilly. Well, this was never explicitly said to me. It was very strongly hinted that we are doing that they, quote, they are doing plan upkeep during deep sleep. Our soul is sort of out to lunch with only a connection here to prevent danger to the body during that time. These upkeep meetings are required because humans are unpredictable. A plan is just a plan, not an enforced regimen. And then somebody else, from what I was told in my near-death experience, every life matters. All experiences are important and meaningful. Living a happy life in a world where there is evil is, well, that's also an experience, you know? And somebody else says, and I like this idea, from what I've learned in my near-death experience, the goal in all of our lives is just to level up like in a role-playing game. To level up, I just need to grind and gain battle experience. Most of the time, I'm just fighting low-level packs of rats or wild boars, but every now and then I face off against an ogre or some grumpy trolls, and very rarely I have to beat a boss. All of this points towards the next level, and I'm so close I can get to it if I stay up all night. So I like that idea that our
Couple
lives
gaming
are like
references.
that. Yep. And then I mentioned the Ophanim, biblical angels that appear in the form of wheels. So the wheel stuff is weird.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know.
I can see how that's a rabbit hole.
Oh, it's totally a rabbit hole. And the stuff with the salvia and I don't know. I'm just freaked out by that because I did not know any of that. And it's just like the DMT and the elves that people see. It's almost like, and this is not telling you to take drugs, but it's almost like these drugs open up your mind to what is really happening.
Yeah.
Which just creeps me out. Now we get to two vastly different final things here I want to say. These are like Reddit things I came across. One person on Reddit writes, "You saw Samsara. Samsara? That is the wheel of the reincarnation trap created by the Archons to keep us hostage within their system so they can continue to feed off us."
Sure.
We've talked about this before where people believe that we're basically a factory where Archons or aliens or something are living off our negative emotions. They write, think of it as a livestock farmer designing a closed system mechanism in which every cow killed at their ranch's slaughterhouse will be born straight back into it by cows giving birth to the very same cow that was just killed, ensuring an inexhaustible supply of cattle. The true reality is totally open and we have free will beyond any human imagination and comprehension of freedom, but these evil beings have encapsulated this planet and built a siphoning, filtering, and replenishing system to keep us locked here in a cyclical pattern, unable to rejoin the true reality until we figure it all out, and thus a way to escape, which is called moksha.
Say what now?
Moksha, Moksha.
Okay.
I am sharing this with the subreddits, and these, if you want to go down a deep rabbit hole of cuckoo, he writes, I am sharing this with the subreddits Reincarnation Truth and Escaping Prison Planet. Lots of us are researching this. And these are all subreddits that deal with this idea that we are livestock for some other beings that are feeding off our loosh, or that's what they call our negative energy. And sometimes it's like, I almost can see how they feel this way because it's like the news and things going on in the world keep us in a perpetual feeling of unease and unhappiness and fear and dread. And it's almost like it's purposely done.
They're part of the machine.
Yeah, it's almost like it's purposely done so that these beings can slurp up our negative emotions. So that's so weird.
I choose to not believe any of that.
Yeah, I don't either. It reminds me of, did you read Stephen King's Revival book?
No.
Okay, I won't say any spoilers then, but
maybe that'll go on the book club list.
This reminds me of that. And then I want to end this whole weird discussion. What do you think of the wheel stuff? I mean,
it's hard to wrap my head around.
It's hard to wrap your head around. But it's the basic idea that there's all these different realities, and when I die here, I go to a different one.
Yeah. Well, I also think it's back to tarot. It's just sort of, maybe it's more of a message of like life has you. There are certain choices you can make. Karma's real.
Yeah. Like
there are turning points in your life where you have an opportunity to pick one path or another. Yeah. Maybe it's more symbolic.
Yeah, because I told my students this week that when I got out of high school, I considered going into the Air Force. And there was one day I remember this clear as day. I sat down in my bedroom at my grandmother's old house with my car keys, and I'm like, should I drive down to the recruitment center or not? And I didn't. And that's a huge split moment where my reality,
your life would have been totally different.
My life split off into two totally different paths.
Was your dad in the military?
He was in the Corps of Engineers, Army Corps of Engineers. That's not really the military.
Right, okay.
But he was in the Corps of Engineers.
I didn't know if he served in the military before that.
No.
Okay.
But yeah, that's the prison planet stuff, and that's almost a whole episode on its own, but there is a lot of craziness there, so just be forewarned.
Okay.
This last one I'm saving for last because I love this one, and this is what I envision everything to be. Okay. Ready? In my near-death experience, one example of my life review was when I was a little kid. We were traveling by car and stopped somewhere along the route. There was a river not far from the road, and my parents asked me to go bring some water back in a bucket from that river. I went to fill up the bucket, but on my way back, I felt that the bucket was way too heavy for me to carry all the way back to the car. I decided to empty some of the water to make the bucket lighter. Instead of just pouring the water out right there, I noticed a tree that was by itself in a dry patch of land alone. I took the effort to go out of my way to that tree, and I poured some of the water to the tree base. I even waited there a few seconds to make sure that the water soaked into the soil and was absorbed. In my life review, I received such applause and joy for this simple act that it is unbelievable. It was like all the spirits in the universe were filled with joy from this simple act and were telling me, we are proud of you. That simple act seemed to be one of the best things I had ever done in my life. This was strange to me because I didn't think this little act was a big thing, and I thought I had done so much more important and bigger things in my life. However, it was shown to me that what I had done was extremely valuable because I had done it purely from the heart with absolutely no expectation for my own gain. That's it.
I also think that that's symbolic, that nurturing one small thing gives way to all the possibility that thing, all the good that thing will do because you nurtured it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I love that idea that a simple act like that was like more important than whatever job he did or anything like that. So that's what I got for the wheel and your death experience stuff.
My brain is full.
I'm fascinated by this, the correlation between like the DMT elves and
the Hat Man.
The Hat Man with the Benadryl when you overdose on Benadryl, and the salvia and the wheel. So this stuff is just fascinating to me, and I know that was like super philosophical and deep, so hopefully that wasn't too bad, but I just figured it fit in with this. And, you know, I had all this stuff sitting on my desktop. So
good stuff.
There we go. Now we're going to get to our 2 listener stories. Emily had a bunch last time, so we saved her last one. So we have hers and we have Jason's. Emily says, before we get to that, what do you think of the wheel? Do you buy that? I love the idea of parallel universes, but I don't like, there's something about the idea of the wheel that freaks me out.
It's unsettling.
It's the mechanical description of it that really bothers me.
I guess the first thing I would say, if any of it is real, then it's really freaky and I don't want to experience it. I don't know. Okay. I mean, we're taking stuff off the internet, so.
Oh yeah, exactly. But the fact that a lot of people seem to, if it was just like one dude off the internet, but a lot of people seeing this stuff kind of.
I also question, did they, or are they just wanting to be part of the conversation? You never know.
Are you just high on salvia? So I don't know. But our first listener story is from Emily. She writes, "This last story might be more of an existential crisis for me, but here it is. I think that something weird does go on in our national parks and forests. That to me is just an indisputable fact. I've read a lot about missing 411 and the portal theory, and it makes me kind of scared after my own experience. My elementary school, private and very small, used to have an event called the Bike-a-thon that they would do every year. You would ride your bike around this campground to earn money. People would pledge per lap, so the more laps you did, the more money the school made." I think that's a cool idea. Mm-hmm. I know people do like walkathons and stuff.
We used to do jump rope for heart.
Did you? This campground just happened to be inside a national forest. I absolutely loved riding my bike, but I was a fat kid who was kind of slow. I had done it the year before and had been disappointed in how short I had fallen in my laps compared to other kids last time. This year, I had practiced riding my bike and was determined to do much better. Normally, this event lasts a few hours, then everyone stays overnight at the campground. The loop that we would ride is paved, and it's a long oval. It's kind of long, so you can't see both sides of it at the same time because of all the trees, but it's almost impossible to get lost. I was feeling really good about my time after the first lap, and I was on to my second. There were some other kids riding ahead of me and a lot of people camping around. The other kids went around a bend in the oval before me and went out of view behind the trees. As I rounded the bend, I expected to see the other kids that had been in front of me, but no one was there. All the people who had been out in front of their tents had gone inside, so it was just me out riding my bike.
That's creepy.
That's creepy. I thought it was kind of weird, but just kept riding. When I came towards the finish line to start my next lap, one of the teachers was there and said, "Oh, good, we were all looking for you. Everyone else is already finished. They are over there if you want to go eat with them."
This actually feels similar to what we've been talking about.
Yeah, I just looked at her puzzled and said, "What do you mean finished? We just started." I had done 8 laps the year before when I had done poorly for reference. There's no possible way that someone who was faster this year could have completed only 2 laps in a window that was hours long. All of the other kids were tired as if they had been riding all day just like last time, but I wasn't tired. I felt like I had only been doing it for 30 minutes. They said they had been looking for me, but had assumed I was just behind like last year, and that's why the other kids hadn't seen me. No one else thought this was strange.
Especially that you're taking laps.
Yeah. Now that I've read about the portal theory, it makes me wonder if maybe I was missing in another universe. I don't feel like I'm from somewhere else, and I sure hope I'm not, but it makes me wonder. I mean, that's so creepy.
Because it's a lap course, people would have repeatedly seen this person. Yeah. They would have repeatedly passed them.
But the fact that they were looking for her.
That's creepy.
Yeah.
That's creepy.
Like, I'm fascinated by the idea of portal stuff when it comes to Bigfoot or aliens or missing 411 stuff, but the thought of accidentally...
Just in a totally normal, mundane situation.
Yeah.
Weird.
where everything's different.
That's
so,
weird.
Emily, that is amazing and
Wow.
creepy.
Super weird.
And thank you for sharing that with us. I don't know what to make of that.
I don't either, but that's
You know,
unsettling.
like I don't have any moments of like missing time or stuff like that in my life.
no.
You know? Or feeling like
Or
I've
I've
gone through
blocked
some
it out.
kind of portal or whatever.
Hmm.
So I don't know. Emily, that's just weird.
Very weird.
Yikes. I don't like that. I don't know what it is, but I just don't like that.
No, I don't either.
And this comes from Jason, listener Jason, who we forgot to add this to the listener stories episode, which I am really good for doing. But next season, I want to get that up over our break to get our
The email
Strange
address?
Session stories. Yep.
Okay.
So this is from Jason. Hi, guys. Hope you are both well. Thank you again for creating such a welcoming community as the Strangers. I found your podcast completely by accident, but it has turned out to be one of the best finds ever. I wanted to write in and tell you a little about some experiences that happened to me when I was around 15 years old back in 1996, 1997. I am not sure if they tie together into a story or even if they warrant a readout, but regardless of that, I want to share as they have happened within a short period of time over the summer and have stuck with me ever since. I live in Hampshire, England, and at this point had lived in the same house since birth. I had never had any paranormal experiences in the house, and in all honesty, had never given it any thought. I felt completely safe in my own home. I lived there with my parents and my brother, who was 4 years younger than I am. My brother was born with several health issues which heavily impacted him growing up, but it was a part of life and we all supported each other through the tough times. As this happened so long ago, the memory of each event has slightly faded, but I will do my best to relay them. The first incident happened in the middle of the afternoon. I was sitting upstairs on my Sega console. Wow.
Sega.
Sega. Being a typical antisocial teenager, while downstairs in our garden, my parents and brothers were sitting playing a board game. My door was shut, my room overlooked the garden, and at the bottom of the staircase we had another door which was also shut. While sat on the edge of my bed, I heard 3 knocks at my door. I shouted back, "Come in," but nobody did. I looked out the window and everyone was still sitting outside. After a few minutes, I convinced myself I had just been hearing things. However, a few minutes later, there were again 3 knocks at the door.
Ugh.
There were no... Chris doesn't like that. These were no random knocks. It was a knock pattern which told you someone wanted to come in. I quickly paused my game, sat quietly, and looked out the window where everyone was still accounted for. The next 3 knocks came so loud that I saw the door shake. Yikes.
No.
It was 3 thuds on the door as if someone was punching the door with the bottom of their fist. At this point, I froze, and the fear running through me makes my hair stand up on the back of my neck even today. I don't know how long I sat there, but it felt like hours. I was scared to shout out my window to the parents, and I was scared to walk out of the room as it felt like someone was out there waiting for me in the hallway. Eventually, my dad came upstairs, and I used that opportunity to shout out and leave my room. Over the next week, I had the distinct feeling someone was watching me from my window whenever I was in the garden. I don't like this.
No.
Back then, my mom had hung net curtains in all the windows. I think this was an 80s and 90s thing, which meant you couldn't really see the rooms from outside. I remember looking up and seeing someone standing there watching my brother and I. I couldn't make them out. I could just almost feel the vision rather than seeing it. I know that sounds strange. Sometime later, I was awoken in the middle of the night to what looked like a man standing at my window. I just remember he had his arms stretched out towards me, but for some reason I wasn't afraid. I closed my eyes, opened them again, and all I remember is seeing an orange outline of where the man stood. This soon disappeared, and I fell back to sleep. Krista's shaking her head. Krista does not like this.
I don't like this at all.
A few days later, we all sat downstairs watching TV one evening when unfortunately my brother had a seizure. My parents called the ambulance, and within a short space of time, they were all being rushed to the hospital. I had chosen to remain on my own at home and agreed that if I needed anything, I would reach out to my aunt and uncle who lived a couple doors down from us. Despite health emergencies being a regular occurrence, this evening I felt really upset, more so than usual, and worried about whether my brother was going to be okay at this time. I can't tell you why, but it felt different. I don't know if it had anything to do with what had been happening to me in the house, but I regretted telling my parents I would stay on my own as I was beginning to feel an overwhelming sense of being vulnerable there alone. I could feel myself becoming more and more scared, plus the worry of what was happening to my brother was making me super upset. It felt as if something in the house was playing off my sadness and trying to feed off of it. I find this next part hard to explain, but within an instant, the fear and sadness was replaced with an overwhelming sense of safety. The atmosphere changed. The smell of the house changed, and I know it sounds cliche, but I felt like there was someone there protecting me. Both my grandparents died before I was 1, so I don't know how I knew this, but I'm convinced it was them. It was like I had picked up and transported to their old house, which, by the way, I have no memory of. I was still visually in my house, but the smell was their house. The feeling was that I was in their house, and it felt like a blanket had been thrown over me. I couldn't hear any voices, but it was like I was being spoken to without sound, like someone was just inputting words into my mind's eye, telling me that everything was going to be okay and that they were there to stop anyone or anything from getting to me. After that evening, I didn't experience any more negative encounters, and I'm putting it all down to my grandparents. I don't know how this could ever be possible, but no one experienced what I did, and to this day, I know it was them. Sorry if it's a little mashed up. I'm an accountant by trade, so putting words into a readable order is sometimes not my strong point. Anyways, thanks again for being the best podcast hosts on the planet. From Jason.
Thank
Wow.
you, Jason.
Thank you, Jason.
Yeah, there's something. So it's one thing to have a knock at your door, like when you're home.
Yeah.
At any
It does
time of day,
sound like
it's
something
unsettling.
super negative was there.
Yeah, but to have something knocking on an internal door,
Yeah.
that's freaky.
But then seeing the person with their arms outstretched in front of them that disappeared into like this orangeness, and then the feeling of sadness and dread being taken over by what he felt like was his grandparents. Like,
So maybe they came in to be like, "Hey, we got your back."
yeah, that's what it sounds
we know
like.
there's something here,
Yeah,
and
I love
you're
the
safe.
idea of that. I love the idea that when we die, we watch over the people around us. It can maybe sometimes fix things or change things. I just really find comfort in that idea. You know. So Jason, thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah. Did you want me to share my story?
Oh,
My weird
yeah,
stuff?
totally. Yes.
So I'll say 2.5 odd things, and maybe the third one I haven't talked to you about this yet. So maybe you're gonna be like, "Oh no, this is what that was." But the first thing was
It was totally Lucy.
Well, the first thing was I was in the bathroom this morning before you got here brushing my teeth, and I was leaning over the sink, and I saw movement of white out of the corner of my eye, and I thought, "Oh, Lucy's coming in here. She likes to come in the bathroom and be like, 'Hey, what are you doing?'" And I looked, and she wasn't in the bathroom, and she was still in the bedroom with Jim. And I'm going to try to explain it away that my hair must have moved, because I saw it through my hair. I have a lot of hair, and I saw white movement through my hair, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm explaining it away as my hair maybe brushed off and fell forward, and just like
It was just the
the
movement
illusion
of,
of my hair made it feel like something was moving.
Yeah.
I didn't hear anything. I didn't feel like something was there. I just saw white movement and thought, "Oh, Lucy's here," and turned, and of course she wasn't in there. So that kind of freaked me out. The second thing was I was in the garage waiting for you, which I do a lot. When you say you're like 5 minutes out, and you were 10 minutes
I
out
was
this
seriously
time.
touched that you were out there this morning waiting for me because
It's
it was cold. It was
It's, like, really
It was
cold.
like 18 degrees.
Well, I started I was out there for like 5 minutes, and then I was like, okay, I'm freezing. So I went back in and I waited until I saw you, and then I came back out. But while I was standing out there, I kept hearing movement in the garage behind me, which isn't super. Again, this is my half, because I'm like, it's probably a chipmunk. But I do that every week. Every time that you come, I wait for you in the garage, and
Yeah.
I've never heard anything moving around behind me before. So it just kind of creeped me out because it was really dark and it was kind of cold, whatever.
Now you got to let me know if stuff.
I know. Well, this is the third thing, though. When
I don't want to record here anymore. I want to go back to the school.
we sat down, heck no. We sat down to record, and I was like, shoot, I better go to the bathroom first. When I got up to
You mean
go
like right when we started, like right before we started recording?
When I got up to go upstairs, what did you do? Did you just stay there?
Yeah, I did not get up out of this chair.
I heard you get up and walk behind me.
What?
Yes. When I got to the top of the stairs and realized you weren't on the stairs behind me, I was like, what the hell? So I thought, okay, when I come downstairs, he's going to be on the couch. I came downstairs and you were sitting there.
Unless I got up to get the things out of the boxes, which
Why
I
would
could.
you-
No, because I can just reach them.
Maybe you did. Maybe you were just moving around, but I heard you. It sounded like
honestly-
you were getting up and walking behind me.
I don't think I was, because all my stuff is here. Like, I usually put my computer bag on the couch, but everything is here within reach. I know at one point I bent over to get these, but I never.
It wasn't. It sounded like you got up.
I did
out
not
of
get
your
up out of the chair. I remember.
and like you were walking behind me. Yeah, that's
Do we
weird,
still
right?
were we recording at that time?
No, I hit pause.
Shoot, I did not get up. I did not get up out of this chair since I sat down in this chair
Because
today.
sometimes you go sit on the couch.
Sometimes
when I
I
go
do,
upstairs.
but I did not. I usually get on the couch.
No, you were still sitting.
No,
here.
I usually sit on the couch, but I was getting stuff like ready to go, and I think I was on my phone and I was getting this set up. I don't think
I could have heard you fidgeting around and misinterpreted it as, "Oh, he's coming upstairs with me to say hi to Lucy."
No,
but
I don't think I got out of this chair since I sat
weird.
down in this chair. So that
so
creeps
that's
me
weird.
out.
That's weird. So those are the weird things that happened this morning. That's the weirdest thing.
That
Like, I
weird-
can
that-
explain the other two things
That
away.
weirds me out because I did not get out of this
Right.
chair since I
Right.
sat in this chair this
Like
morning.
I was shocked when I didn't hear you coming up.
No,
the
because
stairs.
everything if I needed to get something out of my
was all
computer
within
bag,
reach.
everything is all within reach. So I did not get up unless I reached and the chair squeaked, but it's hard to mistake the chair
was more than
squeaking for
that.
being that creeps me out
Yeah.
now. Now I'm creeped out down here.
Yeah,
Wow.
I can't say I'm creeped out down here. I guess we'll see.
But that's a lot in one morning.
I will say I have been down here before, and I think I talked about this once. I was doing laundry and I felt something touch my shoulder.
Yeah.
Like I turned around and thought, we have like a clothesline hanging down here, but it's over my head. And for some reason I thought, oh, maybe there's something hanging on it that I didn't notice, and I backed into it. And I felt something touch my shoulder when I was down here doing laundry. That's
a lot of weirdness for one day.
Yeah, that is
I'm
weird.
I don't know. I know you don't want to think something's going on, but that is a lot
never.
of weirdness for me for one day. Dang.
Yeah, I don't know.
But like we're gonna read his story next time. But Lucho wrote us this week.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I
yeah,
responded to him saying that maybe if something was there,
It's
it's
just passing through, maybe.
no, or it's a time specific thing. Like I said, like the weird
Oh,
stuff that
right.
happened in my apartment, that was
Cyclical.
always in February. So maybe you have weird stuff happen here, like for maybe this 1 week for some reason, weird stuff happens here.
I wish I could
and
remember
then it'll be gone.
the time of year that I saw the red light.
I wish you could too, because maybe it was this time of year. So maybe weird stuff happens for you towards the end of November, and then it's
Okay.
gone.
Anyone, I know sometimes when we're on break, people go back and listen to old episodes. I know I talked about
You
that
did.
red light.
Stephanie told me about it.
She heard it in another
Yes, because
episode.
Stephanie is going back through the old episodes.
Ooh, if that
Hang on,
happened at this time of
Stephanie-
year.
Stephanie said, "Oh, I gotta go back." She said, "I got to season 3, episode 18 about DB Cooper, and before you guys got to our topic, Krista told her red light story. So it was the DB Cooper episode."
I'm going to look. Season 3, episode 18.
Yes, the DB Cooper episode.
Oh, I wish this were organized neatly into
I'm gonna be freaked out if that happened at the end of November,
So am I.
or if it happened in November.
Right. Okay, season 4. Season 3, episode 15.
I just think
16.
your stuff this morning is way too much stuff.
So how can we tell when this was?
The best bet might be going.
September 24th. So fall
Yeah, maybe it's a fallish type thing.
2019.
So I don't know, but today's stuff is weird because that's a whole lot of weird stuff in one day.
Yeah. Agreed.
Dang.
I'll let you know if anything else
Okay,
happens
let me
today.
know if anything happens because I know you don't want to believe that that's something.
I don't want to live in a haunted
significant,
house.
But I do. I think that's the thing freaks me out with the stairs because I did not move from this chair. I was in this chair the entire time you were gone.
I totally had this moment of, oh, he's not behind me right now? Like, that's weird. Yeah.
Huh.
Because I came down here and I looked at you and I'm like, he's sitting in that chair. He hasn't moved out of that chair.
Yeah.
But I thought maybe he got up and did some stuff while I was upstairs and sat back down before I got down here. So,
Yeah. Nope. Okay, that's
Blech.
weird.
yeah, it is weird.
Now I'm done with the pot. No more coming here. So I don't know.
All
keep
Skype
us,
from
keep,
here on out.
Keep us updated. I should have brought my recorder. You could
I will.
bring your digital recorder down here and try getting EVP.
Nope.
All right.
I'm not going to initiate contact with anything.
Okay. Before I do the songs, I'm going to do a listener question because we forgot it last time.
Oh,
But that's weird. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm kind of amazed. I did not think you had those kinds of experiences today.
what's a pickle's favorite TV show?
What?
What's my brine? Oh, good Lord. This is why I stopped reading these. They're so bad.
Rightly so.
I'm not even reading that one. Oh my God, no. These are so bad. Knock, knock.
Wow, I'm going to do that. Who's there?
Pickle.
Pickle who?
Pick a letter from A to Z.
Okay, this one is for you from Anonymous.
Oh, for me?
Krista. Rank the top 3 of Kurt's crushes.
Oh, geez.
Celebrity crushes.
Celebrity crushes? I don't know that I can come up. Well, Carrie Russell.
No, I never had a crush
No?
on Carrie Russell.
Dang.
No.
See, I'm not going to be able to name your
Which is
celebrity
weird
crushes.
because I adore Carrie Russell. I loved her as Felicity. I loved her in The Americans. But I just never had a crush on her. Which is weird. Because there's ones that like Zooey Deschanel, I can't, she annoys me for some reason. You would assume that I would have a crush on her.
See, the problem with this question is you always have crushes on people I've never heard of. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can't think of like big name celebrities off the top of my head that you have crushes on.
Well, there's one that's obvious because I've always had a crush on her.
Who?
Katie Holmes.
Oh, see, I wouldn't have known that.
Oh, God,
Have you talked about that on
Yeah,
here?
I used to have her poster hanging over my bed, and I'm talking when I was like 25, 30 years
I feel like
old.
Kurt's top crushes are girls in commercials.
They are. They are. I get some.
She's pretty cute.
I get some super crazy crushes on girls in commercials.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if there's a current one.
Well, a lot of people start in commercials.
Yeah, and it's always like a girl in a herpes commercial for some medication
wow.
for herpes.
Weird.
But there's yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I can't really answer that question.
And it's weird because then I'll look up who they are and I'll like recognize them when they're in other commercials. But there's actresses like commercial. I have a weird thing for commercial actresses.
So when we did that episode that Jim was on and we did our celebrity crushes, which I've taken back at least 100 times
Yeah,
now.
yes, you have.
He's a monster, apparently.
Yeah.
Who did you list?
I think I said Katie Holmes. And
Really?
what's her name? She's been on a bunch. Yvonne Stravosky.
See, I have no
Oh my
idea.
God. I think she's beautiful. I think she's awesome. Yeah, she's one of my big celebrity crushes is Yvonne Stravosky. She was on Dexter. She wasn't his girlfriend, but I think she was kind of like his girlfriend, but she wasn't Rita because Rita was his girlfriend.
Yeah.
But
Rita was annoying.
Yvonne, she was on Dexter. She was the girl that poisoned people on Dexter. She was like the poisoner.
Oh,
She was Hannah.
She was a victim.
No.
Well, he killed other killers.
He didn't kill her.
Oh, he didn't.
No.
Spoiler alert. I haven't watched that show in
She was
so
kind
long.
of, but this is, you'll recognize, I believe she's on what's the show, The Handmaid's Tale?
Oh.
This is her.
She have blonde hair?
Yes.
Oh, she's beautiful.
Yes.
She's like one of the main characters. Yeah, she's
Yes,
gorgeous.
she is one of my top, and I think she's, like, watching interviews with her, I think she's like a good person. I just think she's incredibly gorgeous. So Yvonne Stravosky.
So Kurt's answering your question because I can't
Katie
come up with
Holmes is always going to be one of my big celebrity crushes. And then there's specific ones like Lisa Loeb in the video for Stay.
Oh, only in that video?
Yeah, because she's got that black dress on. And
really
in that
funny.
video, it's not so much, it's the mannerisms that she does. Like the little mannerisms during the song make me fall in love with her.
Okay.
And there's, like I said, Yvonne Stravosky, Katie Holmes, Taylor Swift. My students, I told my students, and they're like, Mr. K, she's like in her 30s and you're like 50.
Hey, she's an adult.
Yeah.
That's all that matters.
So Taylor Swift, I got like a big crush on. Weird crush on Paris Hilton. I like Paris Hilton.
Interesting.
So yeah, I get weird crushes, but I
You seem to favor the blondes.
which is no, like I'm generally go
You've
towards
named
brunettes.
all blondes except for Katie Holmes.
Huh. Okay.
Oh, Lisa Loeb, I guess, isn't blonde.
Yeah. No, she's a brunette.
Was she blonde in that video?
No,
I'm just
she
kidding.
was. But she's so in that video, that black dress she's wearing, she is just so adorable. I just love Lisa Loeb in the Stay video. I'm trying to think of other big ones, but then I get crushes on one, but then I find out about something about them that makes me not have a crush on them anymore.
Like they're cannibals?
Like that would be that would be a deal breaker.
Yeah. Oh, God.
But no, but yeah, it's a weird thing for girls in commercials. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's
That's
not an
roundabout
answer to the
way.
question, but there you go.
Yeah.
Now we get to song choices, and this one is kind of funny because these two have been on the table for quite a while for song choices of songs that I love. And then I was listening to them the other night in bed on YouTube trying to come up with songs to pick for this one, and I realized that both of these have something about them that ties them in with something I love about Thanksgiving, which is this
Food?
week. Yes. Well, sort of. So my two songs, this first song, like I stumbled across not that long ago, And you probably know this song, and I have a feeling like this is a song that you would love.
Okay.
But this is a song that I kept seeing referred to in places, and I finally went and listened to it, and I'm like, dang, like I like this.
Okay.
So here are some of the YouTube comments about this song. Without exaggeration, one of the best songs ever made. Incredible joy, incredible spirit, emotion, and love. Somebody else writes, whenever I listen to this song, a quick flashback to all of the wholesome moments I've experienced throughout my life suddenly hits me. This song makes me want to live life to the fullest, to have fun, to regret nothing, and to enjoy my life while it lasts. Somebody else writes, I love this. Somebody else writes, me. A song can't be happy and sad at the same time. This song, allow us to introduce ourselves. Somebody else writes, this song makes me homesick for a place I don't even know. Somebody else writes, I love this. Somebody else writes, if this song doesn't play at my wedding, I'm not going. And then, then somebody else writes, the part of the song where Alexander tells Jade the story of how he fell in love with her sounds so authentic. It's like the recording of the song was the first time he ever said this to her out loud. It's a universal feeling that everyone can relate to. And the song is Home by Edward Sharpe and the Magnetic Zeros. Have you?
I think so. Yeah.
Like the girl
I'm familiar
sings
with
and then
band.
the guy
Yeah.
sings and the band. It's like, yeah.
I think I'm home. That song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's such a good, sweet song.
It's one of those bands where there's like 20 people on stage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so one of the comments I didn't put on here, but that made me laugh, is somebody wrote, I love this song, but
It's
man.
in commercials.
Yes.
Like you've heard
Yep.
it.
Somebody,
Okay.
somebody wrote, I love this song, but man, I can smell the pot smoke through the screen.
Yeah. You
But,
think?
but it's one of those, like, I've heard references to this song, and finally I was like, I'm going to go listen to this song. And I'm like, God, this is such a good, sweet song.
Mm-hmm.
But they mentioned something in the song that is specific. So we'll get to my next song, which is the oldest song I've ever suggested in my song suggestions. It's from 1967.
Dang.
And this, when I was a kid, I'm talking pretty young, 10, 11, my friend Don, one of my best friends, Nicole, listens to this, and she'll know who I'm talking about because she's related to Don. But Don and I used to do this thing where we would have a tape recorder going, and we would pretend we were a radio station that I can't say on here because
totally did that with my best
it's
friend.
very naughty at the
Okay.
time. It was very naughty, but it was us talking and just being dumb kids. And like when the DJ was talking, we would drop the volume and then say something filthy to replace the word he was saying, turn it back up.
Funny.
But we were in his garage at the time, and his dad, Larry, had an old car radio from it's had to be like a 50s car in the garage, and we were listening to it, and he had it tuned to a classic rock station. And that was the first time I'd ever heard this song. And I hadn't heard it in years and years. You rarely hear it. But then I went and listened to it on YouTube, and I'm like, God, I love this song. So part of it is that it's tied with a memory, like a really random memory of me being young. But it's just a really good song. Like, I love this song. So here are some comments about it. Somebody writes, classic 60s explosion of pop energy that is seldom duplicated. The song always makes me smile. Somebody else says, this music will always be beautiful, happy, kind, innocent, and timeless to whomever wishes to listen. Somebody else writes, some songs light up the area in your brain that sends you straight back to your childhood. This is one of them. You can almost taste and smell the 60s. Someone else says, my favorite song of all time. It brings back the innocence of young love and good times before adulthood robbed us of the joy we didn't think we would ever lose. And then somebody else writes, for some odd reason, the name of this song makes me think of Thanksgiving because of the fact that it's about food. However, in general, it's a fun, upbeat song that makes me want to dance. The 60s had some of the best music ever. This band really knew how to make this song sound great. And it is by the band Jay and the Techniques, and it is the song Apples, Peaches, Pumpkin Pie.
Oh, yeah.
And the first song, Home, mentioned pumpkin pie in the
yes,
lyrics.
it does.
So it was just weird that
funny.
that like a couple nights ago I was listening and I'm like, dang, both of these songs mention pumpkin pie.
Yeah.
And it's Thanksgiving
Which
week.
is so yeah.
Yeah, so I am doing the songs Home by Edward Sharpe and the Magnetic Zeros and Apple Peaches Pumpkin Pie by Jay and the Techniques in honor of Thanksgiving and my love of pumpkin pie.
I would like to challenge all of our adult listeners to re-listen to this episode and do a shot every
I thought
time.
you were going to say to release your own podcast.
Well, sure. We encourage that. To re-listen to this episode and do a shot every time Kurt says, and someone else says.
Yeah, don't do that because you're going to be...
Because every story you read today, you said someone else says.
You'll be at
someone
the
else says.
ER getting your stomach pumped because you're gonna drink so much.
Just your song choice alone.
Like Aaron, when Aaron listens to it, he says that he tells me stuff that I keep saying, and I just never realize that I keep saying certain
the
phrases.
quote. You've gotten better of the quote.
I'm trying to get better with
Yeah.
that because I know that's annoying. So we're trying to get better with that. But there you go. Those are my 2 songs.
Sweet. We're at 2 hours and 43 minutes. These episodes just keep getting longer and longer.
I know, but then people are
Nobody's
always
ever complained
people are
about
always
it.
excited because
Yeah.
they see it when I release the episode. They're like, "Woohoo! It's like 2.5 hours long this time."
Yep.
This one, according to without because now that I keep the time here, right now we are at 2 hours and 35 minutes.
Well, and I think we had a good 7-8 minutes of banter.
And there's only
for
a
the
couple
coffee
things I need to
people.
take out.
Yeah,
So
and like almost 10 minutes will come out for the
stuff.
unedited part at
for
the beginning.
So
But
there you go.
still.
That was the end of season leftovers. So hopefully that was okay. A whole lot of Wisconsin missing people
like
and
a
true crime.
Cold
and,
turkey sandwich.
And a whole lot of weirdness about this wheel that maybe when you die, you slip into one of these paddles on the wheel and go to a new reality.
Sort of comforting on one hand because life doesn't
That's also
end,
super
but
freaky on
it's
the other
also
hand.
really freaky. Yeah.
So there you go. Hopefully
like
this
it.
was okay. We will be back in 2 weeks with our season finale, joined by Corey. And I need to somehow print out a list of all of our episodes. And then we're just going to say a few things about each episode, what we thought of it.
I wonder
you
if there's
know.
something on Podbean that you can export.
There's got to be. I'm sure it's not going to be that hard. But I'm going to see if we can get updates for some of the episodes. But we can't do all of them because that would take forever. Because I don't know how many episodes we have at this time. But it's
130 something. If you go to
Dang.
iTunes,
It
it'll
tells you?
tell you what's in our
Yeah.
library. I'm going to look right now.
And I know we're going to get to some of these and we're going to be like, dang, we totally forgot we even did that episode.
Yeah.
It's got to be like almost 150.
Geez, it just
I remember
said.
our 100th episode. Where remember we listened to voicemails from people and people.
Isn't that when Kayla made us the cake?
Yes. Yep.
131.
Dang.
Yeah.
But yeah, we will be back in 2 weeks for the season finale.
And allegedly
And
a Christmas episode.
yeah, like I said, maybe a Christmas episode if you guys were good this year.
Yep.
We'll see. Or maybe that's a punishment is getting a Christmas episode from us. You never know. So I think that's it for this time. So from the
Deets.
Deets. We are on email at thestrangesessions@gmail.com. Until Twitter implodes and shuts down, we are on Twitter at Strange Session without the final S, because I don't know what's going to happen at Twitter now with Elon
Just don't
Musk
look for any
stuff.
recent content there.
Yeah, there's no recent. I think the last time we posted on there was
a couple
probably
years
back in
ago,
like
probably.
1991.
I don't even go to Twitter, so I don't know.
Yeah. We are
1991.
Krista does an amazing job on Instagram at the Strange Sessions. And for right now, don't maybe send us anything because unless it's for the book club podcast,
Yeah.
like the tea we got today. So thank you. You can send us postcards and snail mail to The Strange Sessions, P.O. Box 434, Manitowoc, Wisconsin, 54221-0434. And you can call our lonely phone line at 920-443-9602. And I was super excited to get a message here this week until I saw it was about extending my car's warranty. So apparently that number's getting out to the scammers. So lovely.
Great.
Yep.
We should have
And-
played that.
We shall. We got one of our listeners is very concerned about my
This
warranty
really
on my
coded,
car.
really
so
cryptic message.
Yeah, have a whole episode about trying to decrypt it. So I think from Krista and I in the now haunted strange cellar,
Only slightly haunted.
only slightly haunted. Until next time, we love you guys and stay
Stay strange.
strange.